When Ian watched Zhang Hao continuously swing his combat baton, striking a motionless mutated golden retriever. Beside them, Zhang Jiai lay still on the ground, and his heart sank. He glanced toward the other side, where everyone stood guard warily against a mutated red fox. Stepping over to Zhang Hao, he grabbed the wildly swinging baton. "How good, calm down. It's already dead." Zhang Hao froze and slowly halted his movements. A thought suddenly crossed his mind. He released the baton and sprinted toward Zhang Jiai. When Ian was secretly surprised by how fast Zhang Hao ran, then glanced at the slightly deformed combat baton. A suspicion arose in his heart. Could he have awakened an ability? Zhang Hao knelt beside his sister and carefully lifted her helmet. He held a finger beneath her nose and let out a long breath. She was still breathing. He shook her shoulders and called out repeatedly. Unfortunately, Zhang Jiai showed no sign of waking, and unease weighed heavily on him once more. Dark thoughts swirled through his mind. Could she end up trapped in a coma? When Ian had no idea what had unfolded after he was trapped inside the serpent's body, he walked over with concern. "How is your sister?" Zhang Hao shook his head, his voice low. "She's breathing, but she won't wake up no matter what I do." When Ian knitted his brows yet tried to reassure him. "Don't worry. Let's get her to a safe location first, then figure out a solution." He turned to head toward Wenishu, just as the red fox carried the mutated parrot over towards Su Wanqin. Everyone immediately assumed battle stances. When Ian raised his palm cannon and aimed at the fox, ready to fire at the slightest threatening movement, the red fox set the mutated parrot down in front of Su Wanqin, then rolled onto its back to expose its belly, wearing an innocent, ingratiating expression. The group exchanged confused looks. When Ian asked them what had happened while he was trapped inside the giant serpent, they recounted the main events to him. When Ian stared thoughtfully at the red fox, he did not know much about foxes, yet online sources always labeled them crafty creatures. Coupled with the fact that the fox only emerged to offer aid once victory was assured, its actions reeked of subterfuge. When Ian originally intended to drive the fox away, but it stubbornly refused to leave. After a moment's consideration, he decided it could serve as a sentry and allowed it to stay. The survivors picked a suitable villa to take shelter. Just then, Zhang Hao called out to Wenishu. He handed the unconscious Zhang Jiai to her, then walked over to the mutated golden retriever's corpse. He placed his palm upon it. A blood-red stream of energy flowed from the carcass into his body. His palm turned crimson, the color spreading up his arm until it covered his entire frame. The mutated golden retriever's body steadily shriveled, eventually leaving nothing but skin stretched over bones. All flesh had vanished. He repeated the same process beside the giant serpent's corpse. His physique underwent a dramatic transformation. His formerly slightly plump frame grew sharply defined and powerfully built. He stripped off his scaled leather armor, revealing well-sculpted musculature. Broad shoulders, a tapered waist, and defined abdominal muscles marked his new physique. Unlike the bloated muscles of Titan zombies, his muscles possessed extreme density. The others reacted in varied ways. Wenishu covered her eyes, yet peeked through her fingers. Su Wanqin turned her head aside with flushed cheeks. Lin Xueqing observed him with keen interest. Lin Xinran watched openly, unable to hide her curiosity. When Ian stepped closer and whistled in amazement. "How good? You've got an incredible physique." Zhang Hao struggled to suppress a wide grin, brimming with newfound confidence. "Who could possibly stand against me with this power?" When Ian twitched his mouth. "How strong are you now? Can you fight a Titan zombie one-on-one? What exactly is your ability?" Zhang Hao frowned slightly. "It's hard to put my ability into words. I can absorb flesh and blood energy to strengthen my body. As for Titan zombies, I believe I could overpower one easily." When Ian raised an eyebrow. "That confident? Let's test each other." He twisted his neck, ready to exchange a punch with Zhang Hao. Bending his knees into a stable stance, he channeled strength. He threw a punch forward. Zhang Hao casually tossed out a counterpunch. The moment their fists collided, a shockwave rippled outward. Zhang Hao remained rooted where he stood, while when Ian flew backward, he crashed into a thicket of bushes. He scrambled out of the shrubbery, shaking his numb arm. "Why didn't you hold back your strength?" Zhang Hao shrugged with a smile. "What if I actually did restrain myself?" When Ian fell silent for a moment, sighing. The gap between people really can be staggering. Zhang Hao chose not to absorb energy from the remaining mutated parrot. Its flesh held too little energy to interest him. He took Zhang Jiai back from Wenishu, and the group headed into the villa together. The mutated red fox tried to follow them inside, but when Ian blocked its path, though dejected, the fox obediently settled down to wait outside. Zhang Hao laid Zhang Jiai on the sofa and turned toward the rest. "Does anyone know what's wrong with my sister?" Everyone shook their heads. None of them had any medical expertise. When Ian clapped him on the shoulder, "Don't lose hope. I'll think of something. She might just be trapped in temporary unconsciousness." Zhang Hao sighed heavily. "I suppose that's all we can do for now." When Ian thought for a moment and spoke up, "Here's the plan. If Jiai hasn't woken by tomorrow, Zhang Hao, my sister and I will head to the hospital to search for doctors and medical supplies." Relief washed over Zhang Hao after hearing the plan, and no one else raised objections. "All right, everyone pick a room and rest early. Sis, look after Jiai." When Ian said once everyone agreed, "Leave Jiai to me, you can count on it." When Ishu patted her chest assuredly, when Ian nodded, walked into a vacant room, and shut the door behind him. He sat on the bed and watched lines of faint text unfold before his eyes. Version 1.0 upgrade successful. Update log. Unphysical upgrades unlocked, such as raising skill proficiency. Energy point absorption range expanded to 500 meters. When Ian's eyes lit up, he could upgrade skills now? He silently voiced the thought in his mind. Upgrade skill. Nothing happened. He tried again with clearer intent. Upgrade blade work. Upgrade blade work novice requires 200 energy points. Current energy points, 9650. Joy surged through Ian. It worked. His energy points were nearly at 10,000. He chose to upgrade blade work. Streams of unfamiliar memories flooded his mind. Within those recollections, he trained relentlessly with blades for a full week in an ethereal realm, gaining deeper insight into swordsmanship. He opened his eyes and thought again, upgrade blade work. Upgrade blade work skilled requires 500 energy points. He opted not to proceed this time. He had other uses for his energy reserves. Every point needed to be spent wisely. A new idea formed. If skills could be improved, could he upgrade his physical body as well? He concentrated his thoughts. Upgrade physical body. Entity, mortal physique, tier 1. Upgrade flesh skin, 1000 energy points. Upgrade muscles bones, 1000 energy points. Upgrade viscera organs, 1000 energy points. Current energy points, 9450. A grin spread across Ian's face. He selected all 3 upgrades without hesitation. A strange power wrapped around his entire body, reshaping and kneading his flesh as if he were clay. When the power faded, he removed his mech suit and clothes, walking to the bathroom mirror. He stared at his reflection in shock. His skin was fair, his posture upright. All scars, blemishes, and minor imperfections had vanished, replaced by flawless skin. His build differed greatly from Zhang Hao's. He studied himself in the mirror, noticing balanced, powerful musculature without weak points anywhere. It then occurred to him that abilities counted as intangible traits. Could he upgrade and unlock his own ability? He focused his mind. Upgrade ability. A full minute passed with no response. He sighed. It seemed he needed to awaken an ability first before upgrading it. From his observations, awakening required extreme emotional turmoil. When Ishu awakened when facing mortal danger, Su Wanqin's awakening came after witnessing soldiers sacrifice themselves. The same held true for Zhang Hao. To trigger such intense emotions for himself, something terrible would need to happen to Ishu or Zhang Hao. He shook the thought away quickly, resolving to seek alternative methods of awakening an ability. He pulled a fruit knife from his backpack. He wondered what would happen if he directly modified an item without standard upgrades. He sent a thought inward. Open upgrade panel. Entity, fruit knife. Material upgrade, 3 energy points. Design upgrade, 3 energy points. Function upgrade, 3 energy points. Direct item modification, 15 energy points. Current energy points, 6450. He chose direct modification. The fruit knife transformed, its blade and hilt turning pure white. When Ian focused his mind again, view item information. Entity, high-yield C4 throwing knife detonation. Information, a specialized throwing knife forged from C4 explosive. A safety switch sits at the end of the hilt. Once disengaged, the weapon detonates upon striking any target. He stowed the C4 throwing knife thoughtfully, then picked up a bottle of mineral water and brought up the panel once more. Entity, mineral water. Material upgrade, 1 energy point. Design upgrade, 1 energy point. Function upgrade, 1 energy point. Direct item modification, 5 energy points. Current energy points, 6435. He selected modification again. The soft plastic bottle morphed into rigid frosted casing. He checked the new information. Entity, corpse dissolving fluid corrosive. Information, pour this liquid onto corpses to dissolve them completely. He pursed his lips. This item had little practical use for him, yet he tossed it into his backpack regardless. He now understood the rules. Direct modification yielded random results, while performing partial upgrades first allowed limited control. Something suddenly occurred to him. He retrieved a Tier 2 zombie crystal core and a Titan zombie crystal core. The Titan crystal core was noticeably larger, roughly the size of a walnut. He thought, "View information." No feedback appeared. He frowned. It seemed the information panel only worked on upgraded or modified objects. He opened the upgrade interface for the Tier 2 zombie crystal core. Entity: Magic Energy Crystal Core convertible to 100 energy points. Purify Crystal Core, 20 energy points. Modify Crystal Core, 100 energy points. Current energy points, 6430. He first chose Purification. The blood-red crystal in his palm shifted to pale blue. He checked its stats. Entity: Energy Shard. Information: contains vast quantities of pure energy. Touching it allows it to power electronic devices. When Ian nodded to himself, it worked as a portable power source. Electrical infrastructure would inevitably collapse eventually, sending human technology back decades. This energy shard offered a solution to that crisis. He then initiated modification on the shard. The crystal transformed once more, its pale blue hue shifting to milky white. He pulled up its information. Entity: Tier 1 Ability Crystal Core. Information: rapidly replenishes energy for ability wielders and aids Tier 1 ability users in advancing their power. Excitement surged within him. By pure chance, he had discovered a method to advance ability power. After a moment's hesitation, he took another Tier 2 zombie crystal core and chose direct modification. The blood-red core morphed into a black sphere covered in dense honeycomb indentations. He checked its data. Entity: Dark Energy Bomb Ignition Trigger. Information: channel energy to activate. Upon activation, it explodes on contact with any surface, covering a blast radius of 100 meters. He stored the energy shard and dark energy bomb, then opened the panel for the Titan crystal core. Entity: Magic Strength Crystal Core convertible to 300 energy points. Purify Crystal Core, 60 energy points. Modify Crystal Core, 300 energy points. Current energy points, 6210. He first purified it. The deep red color faded into a pale red rounded crystal. He viewed its information. Entity: Strength Concentrate. Information: upon ingestion, it continuously releases energy for 1 hour, doubling the consumer's strength. Note: maximum strength cannot exceed the original power of the Titan zombie this core came from. When Ian contemplated this, if Zhang Hao consumed it, the effect would likely be minimal, only restoring stamina. If Lin Xinran took it, however, her strength would double for an hour. He proceeded to modify the purified crystal. It shifted into a pale pink medicinal pellet. Entity: Great Strength Elixir Physique Reinforcement. Information: consuming it permanently enhances physical condition, with an upper limit equal to 50% of the original Titan zombie's physical potential. He drew a sharp breath. The description was brief, yet the effect was extraordinarily potent. An ordinary human who swallowed this elixir could drastically improve their physique without grueling training. Due to the rarity of Titan crystal cores, he avoided testing direct, unpurified modification. Instead, he converted all 3 Titan cores into great strength elixirs and stored them safely. He then turned his attention to his mech suit, opening its upgrade panel and selecting modification. Entity: Individual Exoskeleton Armor. Direct Item Modification, 2,500 energy points. Current energy points, 5160. A mysterious energy enveloped the armor, shrouding it in a flickering haze. Growing accustomed to the sight, he fetched a set of sleepwear from the wardrobe and headed for the bathroom to bathe. When he returned, the modification process had finished. The armor shone silvery white, seamless, resembling a faceless humanoid robot. He pulled up its information panel. Entity: Nanoscale Liquid Metal Combat Suit Intelligent Liquefaction. Information: constructed entirely from liquid metal with a built-in rudimentary artificial intelligence. It can freely alter shape following its wielder's brainwaves. Equipped with twin integrated energy cannons that switch between laser and plasma modes. Plasma mode doubles as plasma thrusters. 2 energy cells embedded in the chest and back hold 100 energy points. When Ian nearly cheered upon reading the details. With this combat suit, who could stand against him? He suppressed his excitement and walked toward the armor. He paused, uncertain how to don it. He studied the surface carefully, spotting a fingerprint indentation on its back. He pressed his index finger against it, and liquid silver instantly spread across his fingertip. A gentle female voice emanated from the suit. DNA scanning in progress. DNA scan complete. Silver fluid extended from his finger, forming a metallic silver wristband on his forearm. Welcome, Master, to the C-300 Liquid Combat Suit. Please assign a name to me and the armor. When Ian thought briefly before speaking, we live through the end of the world. So the armor shall be named Doomsday Armor. As for you, I'll call you She. May you bring hope to this apocalypse. Understood, Master. Would you like to wear the armor now? When Ian nodded, deploy the suit. The Doomsday Armor glided forward and pressed against his body. The metal liquefied, flowing over every inch of him like mercury and gradually solidifying. He felt a gentle, tight wrapping. Compared to his previous exoskeleton, this armor provided far more complete coverage and a tighter fit. The moment the armor fully enveloped him, a holographic display lit up before his eyes, and the suit finished forming its finalized shape. She, what functions do you possess? A list of features popped up on his interface. When Ian stared in quiet awe, the Doomsday Armor's capabilities exceeded his expectations. The panel only listed primary functions, with numerous hidden auxiliary features remaining undisclosed. Inside the storage compartment on the back of the combat suit lay various components along with large quantities of liquid metal capable of freely shifting shape. According to Xiaoxi's explanation, the liquid metal could be flexibly formed into all manner of weapons. At his mental command, the liquid metal on his arm began to flow, extending a 1-meter-long sharp blade. The blade grew from the back of his hand. He spotted a sturdy alloy safe in the bedroom and swung the blade down. The sharp blade sliced through the safe as if it were tofu, spilling large amounts of cash, gold, watches, and other valuables across the floor. He glanced at the items on the ground without a second thought. The apocalypse had arrived. These possessions were worthless. He drew his blazing battle blade and tried cutting through the remaining section of the safe, swinging it downward once more, only to meet immense resistance. A sizzling sound emanated from the blade. As it melted the alloy safe at a glacial pace, he let out a helpless sigh. His blazing battle blade could no longer keep up with his current capabilities. He planned to find an opportunity to trade the blazing battle blade with official forces. Stowing the blade away, he prepared to test forming other configurations when a palm-sized chunk of unfamiliar metal caught his peripheral vision among the scattered debris. Curious, he crouched down and picked up the dark gray unknown metal, opening his upgrade interface. Item, Meteorite Heart. Energy required for upgrading materials, 2,000 points. Energy required for upgrading purity, 2,000 points. Energy required for upgrading functions, 2,000 points. Energy required for item modification, 10,000 points. Current energy points, 2660. He gasped. He had no idea the cost would be so steep. Even a small piece of this extraterrestrial meteorite demanded such vast amounts of energy points for upgrades and modification. It must be an extraordinary treasure. He raised the meteorite, intending to toss it into his usual backpack, but considering the possibility of radiation, he placed it inside the combat suit's built-in storage compartment instead. The liquid metal naturally possessed radiation shielding properties. He murmured to himself, Xiaoxi, assemble a chainsaw on my right hand. Understood, Master. The blade on his right hand liquefied and began restructuring. Seconds later, the blade transformed into a spinning chainsaw. He instructed Xiaoxi to reconfigure it into a minigun. The chainsaw liquefied and retracted, vanishing completely after more than 10 seconds. In its place emerged a minigun with 8 barrels circling his forearm. He aimed at the fragments of alloy scattered on the ground, ready to test its firepower. The minigun barrels whirred, firing several projectiles forged from liquid metal. The rounds pierced the metal fragments effortlessly, embedding deep into the concrete floor. When Ian then received a prompt from Xiaoxi, he could retrieve the projectiles by touching them with the combat suit. Xiaoxi also suggested replacing liquid metal rounds with conventional ammunition. He nodded thoughtfully. The combat suit offered plenty of room for tactical experimentation. Setting aside further testing of the suit, he focused his mind. The combat suit covering his body shifted. Its mecha-style combat form contracted and reshaped. Liquid metal from the helmet retracted into the suit, leaving only an earpiece resting on his right ear. The rest of the suit transformed into ordinary clothing identical to what he had worn before the apocalypse. He stepped before a full-length mirror and studied his reflection. He looked just as he had before disaster struck. The only differences were the bracelet on his wrist and the earpiece on his ear. Satisfied with his appearance, he grabbed his backpack and walked out of the room. When Ian reached the main hall, he was surprised to find everyone gathered there. Lin Shinran and Su Wanqin sat on one sofa. Lin Shinran chatted animatedly, while Su Wanqin responded with occasional smiles. Lin Xueqing and Wen Yishu occupied the sofa on the opposite side, chatting about daily matters and laughing softly from time to time. Between the sofas lay the unconscious Zhang Jiai, with Zhang Hao sitting beside her. Zhang Jiai's leather outfit had been exchanged for loose sleepwear. Zhang Hao stared blankly straight ahead, lost in thought. Everyone had changed into summer sleepwear, their arms and legs exposed. Wan Yian's gaze lingered briefly on Lin Xinran and Su Wanqing. He swallowed and tried to pinch his arm, only to discover the combat suit covering him was far too rigid. He focused his mind once more. The combat suit detached from his body, reshaping into a faceless humanoid form. Carrying his backpack, he walked over to the group and greeted them with a smile. Everyone's in the hall. Why didn't anyone come get me? Wen Yishu pouted. You found your way out on your own after all. Wen Ian cleared his throat. I've got something good for all of you. As he spoke, he pulled a strength pill out of his backpack. Instead of taking out all three, he handed one to Su Wanqing first. This is a strength pill. Consuming it will enhance your physical constitution. He was uncertain if the pill carried any side effects. If it caused excessive muscle growth, his sister would be dismayed. For that reason, he decided to let Su Wanqing test it first. The others misinterpreted his reasoning as special fondness for Su Wanqing. Their gazes turned suggestive, and Wen Yishu wore an expression that clearly said she would handle everything. Su Wanqing's cheeks flushed as she accepted the pill. She swallowed it under everyone's watchful eyes and closed her senses to feel the changes spreading through her body. Seeing Su Wanqing shut her eyes, Wen Yishu quietly crept over to Wen Ian's ear. Brother, I'll help you win her heart. Wen Ian's mouth twitched. He pulled another energy crystal out and handed it to his sister. Quit teasing. This is an ability crystal. Try absorbing its energy to strengthen your powers. Wen Yishu's eyes lit up as she took it. Can this raise my ability rank? You're the best, brother. She paused as a thought crossed her mind, patting her chest confidently. Don't worry, I'll make sure you win over Sister Wanqing. Her words confirmed everyone's suspicion that Wen Ian harbored feelings for Su Wanqing. Su Wanqing's face grew even redder behind her closed eyes. Wen Ian flicked her forehead. Everyone will receive an energy crystal. Spread any more rumors, and I'll knock some sense into you. Wen Yishu stuck out her tongue and sat quietly on the sofa, attempting to absorb the crystal's energy. Zhang Hao, who had been lost in his own thoughts, snapped back to reality and joked. If your sister can't help you out, I can lend a hand too. Wen Ian rolled his eyes and crooked his finger. Come on, let's settle this between men. Zhang Hao raised an eyebrow and laughed. Cut it out. I'm not interested in that. Wen Ian frowned. Quit overthinking. Let's have an arm wrestle. Zhang Hao reached out and touched Wen Ian's forehead. No fever here. What nonsense are you talking about? Wen Ian brushed his hand away. Stop stalling. Let's start. Zhang Hao knelt down across the table from Wen Ian, ready for the contest. Don't blame me if you get crushed, since you asked for this. They locked hands. Wen Ian strained with all his might, yet Zhang Hao's arm remained perfectly steady. Zhang Hao taunted him. Didn't you eat? Call me dad, and I'll let you win. Refusing to admit defeat, Wen Ian used his second hand to push against Zhang Hao's single arm. Zhang Hao smirked. Even with one hand held back, you still can't beat me. He tensed his muscles and pushed. Bang! A soft thud echoed from the table as Wen Ian's arm slammed down in defeat. He raised his thumb in acknowledgement. All right, you've got skill. Nice work, Hao Ge. Zhang Hao laughed heartily and sat back, feeling triumphant. Still unwilling to concede, Wen Ian turned toward Lin Xinran, seated beside Su Wanqing. Xinran, want to give it a try? Lin Xinran covered her mouth and chuckled. Don't pout if you lose. Wen Ian huffed. We'll see who the loser is. Before they could begin, Zhang Hao suddenly spoke up. Ian, are you just looking for an excuse to hold Xinran's hand? The whole group burst into laughter. When Ian kicked toward Zhang Hao, who dodged easily, Wen Yishu, mid-absorption of the energy crystal, nearly lost her focus at Zhang Hao's comment, her cheeks flushing bright red. With a dark expression, when Ian leaned over the table and locked hands with Lin Xinran. She grinned playfully. If you want to hold my hand, just say so. If you craft a fine set of gear for me, I won't mind. When Ian stayed silent, his expression growing grimmer. He pushed hard, but Lin Xinran was prepared. Using her full strength, she slowly forced his arm backward. Abandoning all restraint, when Ian grabbed the edge of the table with his free hand for leverage. Yet he lost the contest in the end. He gained a clearer understanding of his physical strength. He was slightly weaker than Lin Xinran and far outmatched by Zhang Hao. However, the outcome would be different if he wore the combat suit. When Ian thought about upgrading equipment for the entire team and held out his hand toward Lin Xueqing. Qingjie, can I borrow your compound bow? Lin Xueqing looked confused, walked to her room, and fetched the bow before handing it over. What do you plan to do with my bow, Ian? When Ian offered no explanation, he took the bow and focused his mind. Open upgrade interface. Item, compound bow. Energy required for upgrading materials, 100 points. Energy required for upgrading design, 100 points. Energy required for upgrading functions, 100 points. Energy required for item modification, 500 points. Current energy points, 2660. He grimaced. The cost was far higher than the 20 or 50 points he had expected. Why would a simple compound bow cost this much? Could it be a result of his upgraded system? Though it pained him to spend the energy, he selected every available upgrade. Before everyone's eyes, the compound bow in his hands blurred and reshaped into a brand new version. The bow was solid black, fitted with a sharp blade along its outer edge. The pulley systems at both ends vanished, replaced by two fist-sized black orbs connected by the bowstring. When Ian pulled a fruit knife from his backpack and ran it lightly along the new blade, the blade sliced through the knife as easily as paper. Everyone stared in disbelief, witnessing a weapon surpassing modern technology materialize in such an uncanny fashion. A faint smile tugged at Ian's lips as he handed the bow to Lin Xueqing. Lin Xueqing remained stunned as she took hold of it. The unexpected weight nearly pulled it from her grasp. She attempted to draw the bowstring, but could only pull it halfway. She shot Ian a helpless look. He cleared his throat and pretended not to notice. A sudden cry came from Lin Xinran. "Sister Wanqin, what's wrong?" All heads turned towards Su Wanqin. Her face was flushed, sweat streamed down her forehead, her hands clenched tightly, and her brows were furrowed as if she endured intense agony. Panic surged through Ian. Could there be a complication with the strength pill? He hurried forward and touched her forehead. It burned fiercely. His heart sank. Her temperature was far above 40 degrees Celsius, nearing 50. He quickly told Lin Xinran and the others to move Su Wanqin to the bathroom for physical cooling. Without hesitation, Lin Xinran lifted her into a bridal carry and rushed into the bathroom. When Ian hurried to search the refrigerator, hoping to find ice to speed up the cooling process, when Ishu paused her energy absorption and wandered over. "Brother, what are you looking for?" He continued rummaging. "Ice. Cold water alone won't bring her temperature down fast enough." His sister tapped his back. "No need to search. There's an ice maker over there." When Ian halted and followed her gaze, a compact built-in ice maker sat within the kitchen cabinetry. He stepped toward it to collect ice when a bucket flew past him. The ice maker automatically opened, spilling ice cubes into the bucket. Once full, the bucket floated rapidly toward the bathroom where Su Wanqin rested. When Ian frowned, trying to formulate a solution, what was causing this reaction? Should he upgrade and modify fever-reducing medicine? No, that would not work. The combat capsules had originally been modified fever medicine, yet they lost all cooling effects after modification. Besides, Su Wanqin's fever was not triggered by a normal immune response. Ordinary medicine would be useless. After failing to think of a solution, he could only hope for the best. He turned to his sister. "Did you feel any changes from absorbing the crystal?" She nodded. "My ability feels stronger. I can lift more weight with telekinesis, and my power reserves are full." When Ian nodded and said nothing more, Su Wanqin's quiet cries of pain drifted out of the bathroom. He sent Lin Xueqing inside to check if further assistance was needed. Leaning against the wall, when Ian pondered the team's equipment needs, the throwing knives his sister used were no longer suitable for combat. Neither Lin Xinran nor Su Wanqin even possessed protective leather armor. He considered upgrading and modifying superior blades, such as the boning knives inside the villa. Still, he worried weapons forged from those knives might not keep up with future battles. As the setting sun streamed through the window, a sudden idea came to him. Right. The corpses of the mutated dog and mutated python remained outside. The mutated dog's bones could be crafted into weapons, and the python's hide could be made into protective armor. He resolved to act immediately. He told Zhang Hao and his sister to put on their gear and help haul the two mutated creature corpses into the courtyard. He also had not forgotten the mutated red fox lingering by the gate. While the two changed into their equipment, he spoke softly. "Xiaoxi, deploy combat suit." Xiaoxi's voice echoed through the earpiece. "Understood, master." The combat suit waiting in the corner glided toward him, liquefying and covering his body. When the display inside the helmet lit up, the suit was fully equipped. Shortly afterward, the two emerged from their rooms. When Ian turned to his sister, "Stay here and watch over Sister Jai. Zhang Hao and I will retrieve the mutated creature bodies outside. Contact us via the helmet if anything happens." She nodded and sat on the sofa, spreading her telekinetic awareness. She would detect any disturbance within 100 meters. When Ian and Zhang Hao pushed open the villa door and spotted the mutated red fox resting in the courtyard. Scattered feathers from a mutated parrot lay around it. The fox must have eaten the parrot's corpse. It glanced at them briefly before losing interest. As when Ian and Zhang Hao prepared to step outside the villa grounds, the red fox's ears twitched. It seemed to have heard something. Growing agitated, it charged toward the villa entrance. When Ian instantly entered combat readiness, a hand cannon materialized on his left arm, aimed at the fox, while a sharp blade extended from his right hand. Zhang Hao gripped his combat device tightly, equally alert. The mutated red fox halted, sensing the danger ahead. It appeared extremely anxious, emitting soft, restless cries. Neither when Ian nor Zhang Hao could understand it. The fox paced back and forth in distress. When Ian decided to try communicating, he asked Xiaoxi through his helmet. Xiaoxi, what is it trying to say? Commencing behavioral analysis. Behavioral analysis complete. There is a 98.6% probability the mutated red fox's agitation stems from hearing Su Wanqing's cries of pain. Thoughts raced through in Ian's mind. He suspected the fox had chosen Su Wanqing as its master after hearing her sing. The likelihood was high, yet he dared not let it enter the villa as a precaution. Unsure whether the fox could understand human speech, he issued a warning. We will care for Su Wanqing. You cannot enter this building, or I will eliminate you. It appeared to comprehend his words, slumping back down onto the ground in apparent resignation. To prevent the fox from rushing inside unexpectedly, when Ian locked the front door. Only then did the two leave the villa and head toward the mutated creature corpses. Before they drew near, the night vision feed inside when Ian's helmet revealed a mutated Maine Coon tearing at the mutated golden retriever's body. When Ian held Zhang Hao back, he raised his arm to aim at the mutated cat, relying on Xiaoxi's combat assistance to fine-tune his lock-on. A palm plasma cannon fired straight toward the mutated Maine Coon's head. As the plasma blast charged, the beast seemed to sense the threat. It lifted its head toward when Ian and leaped in fright. The palm cannon, originally aimed at its skull, only struck its thigh because of the sudden jump. The searing plasma pierced clean through the limb, charring the impact site black. The cat let out a shrill, pained wail and hobbled backward in flight. A cold glint flashed in when Ian's eyes. It had come all this way, yet it thought it could escape? He switched the plasma cannon on his gauntlet to plasma thrusters. His body surged forward, accelerating toward the mutated Maine Coon at 20 meters per second. Seeing when Ian closing in rapidly, the mutated Maine Coon knew escape was impossible. It let out an angry yowl. It pushed off with its hind legs and lunged straight at when Ian, slashing its claws toward him. A sharp blade materialized in when Ian's hand. He met the incoming claws with a diagonal slash. The two figures passed each other midair. When Ian reversed the thrust from his plasma thrusters to counteract his momentum, then descended gently to the ground. When Ian turned to look at the mutated Maine Coon, its head had been severed from its torso, falling alongside the paw that had reached for him. When Ian picked up the severed paw and the creature's corpse, dragging them toward the villa, he had barely taken 2 steps when Ishu's alarmed voice echoed inside his helmet. It's bad. A mutated red fox has broken inside. When Ian's expression shifted, abandoning the mutated Maine Coon's body, he ignited the thrusters in both palms and rushed toward the villa. He reached the villa gates in the blink of an eye and noticed no signs of forced entry. He was about to use his combat suit's built-in functions to unlock the door when it swung open of its own accord. When Ian knew when Ishu had opened it using her telekinesis. Without hesitation, he strode toward the bathroom. When he arrived, he saw inside the washroom a mutated red fox staring at Su Wanqing, who sat in the bathtub enduring obvious discomfort. Concern flickered in the fox's eyes. Lin Xinran stood between Su Wanqing and the fox. Lin Xueqing stood nearby, drawing her bow into a half-moon stance and aiming straight at the mutated red fox. When Ishu stood in the bathroom doorway, 3 pitch-black shadow daggers hovered above the red fox, primed to strike. Aware of its precarious situation, the mutated red fox did not dare advance. It simply lay flat on the floor and watched Su Wanqing quietly. Amid the tense atmosphere, Su Wanqing's brows gradually relaxed, and her cries of pain faded away. She slowly opened her eyes, looking bewildered at the scene unfolding before her. Visible joy washed over the mutated red fox the instant it saw Su Wanqing recover. Its mouth stretched open, eyes shining brightly, and it let out soft, happy whines. It subconsciously took a few steps forward. The hovering daggers dropped abruptly, stopping only centimeters above its skull. Lin Xinran tensed her body, ready to intervene. Su Wanqing quickly grasped the gravity of the situation. She stood up from the bathtub and rested her slender, pale hands on Lin Xinran's shoulders, speaking gently. It's all right. I don't believe it means us any harm. She walked over to the mutated red fox and gently stroked its head. "Little fox, did you come looking for me?" The mutated red fox squinted comfortably and nodded. To show goodwill, it rolled onto its back and exposed its belly. Though the group relaxed slightly, they remained vigilant. Zhang Hao arrived a short while later. He had only set off after confirming Zhang Jiai's safety. He glanced at the red fox lying on its back and frowned. "Ian, I say we kill it. Keeping it around offers no real benefit, and we'll always be on edge." When Ian shook his head, "Let's wait and see. It doesn't seem hostile toward us. It might even guard the property." Zhang Hao responded with a quiet, "Oh," and said nothing more. Su Wanqing understood everyone's unease. She turned back toward the mutated red fox. "If you acknowledge me as your person, I'll name you Huyin." Huyin let out an excited cry and rubbed its head happily against Su Wanqing's palm. "All right, Huyin," Su Wanqing continued. "For now, you'll need to stay outside. Call out loudly if danger approaches." Huyin whined reluctantly, then darted past the group and ran off. Everyone breathed a collective sigh of relief. Lin Xinran stared at Su Wanqing with undisguised admiration. "Wanqing, you're incredible. You can win over anyone, even mutated foxes." A faint blush rose on Su Wanqing's cheeks. When Ian stepped forward and gently moved Lin Xinran aside. "Wanqing, how do you feel physically now?" Su Wanqing clenched her fist. "I feel far stronger, and my body feels much lighter." A spark of excitement lit up when Ian's face. "Wanna arm wrestle to test it out?" The others rolled their eyes. Before Su Wanqing could agree, his sister cut in from behind. "Brother, if you really want to compete, at least let Wanqing change into dry clothes first." When Ian then noticed Su Wanqing was soaked from head to toe, he had been too focused on watching Huyin earlier to register it. Lin Xinran stepped firmly in front of Su Wanqing and huffed. "When Ian, you were just trying to stare, weren't you?" When Ian cleared his throat awkwardly. "We'll head outside then. Take your time changing, Wanqing." He turned to leave, also dragging Zhang Hao, who had been sneaking glances, out with him. The two stepped back out of the villa, glanced at Huyin resting not far away, and closed the front door. Afterward, they began hauling the mutated beast carcasses. Once all three bodies were piled in the yard, when Ian pointed toward Huyin and issued a warning. "You are not allowed to eat these mutated beasts. I have plans for their remains." Huyin lazily opened one eye, shot him a dismissive glance, and turned its head away, acting annoyed by his chatter. When Ian's mouth twitched. "Hey, don't give me that look. I'm this close to teaching you a lesson." He rolled up his sleeves, ready to advance. Zhang Hao quickly grabbed hold of him. "Don't be hasty, brother. This fox answers to Su Wanqing. If you beat it now, she won't look kindly on what you've done." When Ian froze, for a split second, he felt like punching his own friend. He took a deep breath and forced his anger under control, walking toward the villa. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he grew. As someone with a system, did he really need to tolerate a mutated beast? He could not hold back any longer. When Ian suddenly halted, pushed off the ground, and charged straight at Huyin. Liquid metal coalesced into a massive hammer in his right hand, swinging hard toward the fox. The normally laid-back Huyin was startled and leaped sideways just in time. The powerful strike slammed into the pavement, sending broken concrete flying everywhere. Huyin yelped indignantly. When Ian reshaped the liquid metal hammer into a long whip and lashed it toward the fox. Huyin failed to dodge completely and took the blow. It cried out in pain, hostility flaring in its eyes. While evading successive strikes, it circled closer and swiped its claws at Ian's chest. When Ian stood his ground and endured the hit, the sharp claws only left faint scratches on his armor. He seized the fox's paw mid-strike and slammed Huyin forcefully against the ground. Huyin let out a scream, which was cut short as when Ian hurled it sideways once more. Zhang Hao watched the fox being tossed back and forth, unsure whether he ought to intervene. Lin Xinran, Lin Xueqing, and Wen Yishu watched the scene from the villa's second floor. Wen Yishu even used telekinesis to retrieve a pack of potato chips, lifting her helmet to eat. After several heavy impacts, Huyin's vision swam. When Ian stopped and stared at the dazed fox. "Do you understand human speech now?" Huyin shook its head groggily. Mistaking the motion for defiance, anger surged in when Ian again. "You're stubborn, aren't you?" He kicked hard, sending Huyin rolling several meters away. He stepped slowly toward the fox and raised his fist to strike. Huyin finally snapped out of its stupor. It quickly rolled onto its back, exposing its belly and letting out pleading whimpers. When Ian stared at the vulnerable fox, "Can you understand me now?" Huyin nodded frantically, looking utterly pitiful. When Ian lowered his fist and walked over to the severed paw from the mutated Maine Coon, Huyin stumbled unsteadily a few paces, then collapsed onto an intact paving slab, its gaze filled with wounded grievance. Upstairs, the three observers each wore different expressions. Lin Shinran's eyes sparkled as she watched Wen Ian's powerful display. He perfectly matched the image of the strong partner she hoped to find. Lin Xueqing watched with undisguised admiration, while Wen Yishu pouted and muttered, "Brother can be far too violent." Wen Ian picked up the severed mutated cat paw and opened his upgrade panel. Item: Mutated cat paw. Energy required for material upgrade, 100 points. Energy required for design upgrade, 100 points. Energy required for function upgrade, 100 points. Energy required for item modification, 500 points. Current energy points, 2,663 points. A faint smile tugged at Wen Ian's lips. Defeating just one mutated cat had earned him 303 energy points, enough for a full upgrade on the cat paw. He opened the item information panel. Item: Bionic Claw Gauntlet. Description: Retractable claws. The interior of the gauntlet automatically conforms to the wearer's hand. When Ian slipped the gauntlet on, the inner lining contracted instantly, fitting perfectly against his palm. At his thought, for razor-sharp claws extended outward. He swiped at the mutated cat's corpse. The blade sliced through flesh as easily as cutting tofu. Satisfied, he retracted the claws and removed the gauntlet. A thought suddenly crossed his mind. This gauntlet came as a pair. He needed to upgrade the second paw as well. Grumbling at the energy cost, he headed for the mutated cat's other limb. At that moment, Su Wanqing emerged from the villa wearing new sleepwear. Spotting her, Huyin rushed over and rubbed its head repeatedly against her legs, whining plaintively. Su Wanqing knelt down in confusion and stroked its head. "Huyin, what's wrong?" Huyin tilted its forehead toward Wen Ian and whined even louder. Right then, Wen Ian raised his blade and cut off the mutated cat's remaining paw. He heard movement behind him and glanced back. Seeing only Su Wanqing, he returned his attention to upgrading the paw in his grasp. To Huyin, the scene looked completely different. It seemed as though Wen Ian, having heard its complaint, chopped off the paw and turned to glare, silently threatening. "Make another sound, and I'll cut your claws off next." Huyin's whimpers died instantly. Fear flickered in its eyes. No matter what Su Wanqing asked afterward, the fox stayed silent, curling up shakily beside her feet, leaving her thoroughly confused. When Ian called the three onlookers downstairs and assigned tasks. When Yishu would strip the serpent hide, Zhang Hao would carve meat from the cat carcass, and Lin Shinran would pack the sliced meat into the freezer. As for Lin Xueqing and Su Wanqing, when Ian planned to give the strength pill to Lin Xueqing and let the experienced Su Wanqing watch over her. Everyone set to work. Lin Shinran frowned unhappily. "Raw meat is gross. Can I switch jobs?" When Ian pulled out the two bionic claw gauntlets and waved them in front of her, feigning disappointment. "If you don't want the task, I guess these specially crafted weapons won't be yours." Lin Shinran's eyes lit up the second she saw the claws. She lunged forward to grab them, but when Ian dodged in advance, he teased her, watching her gaze fixated on the gauntlets. "These aren't free. You'll have to earn them. Can you sew?" Lin Shinran nodded quickly. "I can, though the finished work might not look pretty." When Ian stopped teasing and tossed the gauntlets over, gesturing toward the serpent hides, he said, "Tomorrow, you'll turn these skins into leather tops and trousers." Lin Shinran slipped on the gauntlets and tested them. The weapon felt tailor-made for her. She waved the claws excitedly. "If I'd known these existed sooner, I'd take on any job you ask for." When Ian raised an eyebrow, "Do you mean that?" Lin Shinran flushed and turned away to help Zhang Hao process the carcasses. When Ian picked up a slab of trimmed mutated cat meat and opened the upgrade panel once again. Item: Mutated cat meat. Energy required for material upgrade, 10 points. Energy required for packaging upgrade, 10 points. Energy required for function upgrade, 10 points. Energy required for item modification, 50 points. Current energy points, 2063 points. He first upgraded the material and function properties, then checked the updated description. Item: Spirit-infused cat meat. Description: Specially treated spirit-infused meat that gently enhances physical constitution. Physical ability wielders gain amplified benefits upon consumption. The outcome exceeded his expectations. It was another item capable of boosting bodily strength. He tried out the modification option next. Item: Spirit-infused cat meat blood surge. Description: Consumption accelerates blood flow and muscles flood with power for 30 minutes, boosting strength by 50%. Note: the higher the consumer's base constitution, the weaker this effect becomes. A satisfied grin spread across Ian's face. A 50% temporary strength boost could serve as a valuable trump card. Watching the group busy with their tasks, he got to work as well. He upgraded 5 portions of spirit-infused cat meat and headed to the kitchen to cook. 3 portions, alongside modified blood surge meat, were prepared as dried jerky and placed in the oven. Thanks to their coordinated efforts, all work was finished quickly. The group gathered around the dining table facing an array of dishes: blanched meat slices, braised meat chunks, stir-fried strips, and a large pot of broth. Lin Shinran was the first to dig in, eating heartily without reserve. The others picked up their chopsticks as well. Zhang Hao and Wen Yishu ate the least. Zhang Hao only sampled a small bite of each dish. Wen Ian looked on curiously. "How, isn't the food to your taste?" Zhang Hao shook his head. "I'm still processing the flesh from the mutated hound and serpent I consumed earlier. My body hasn't fully absorbed it yet, so I don't have much of an appetite." Realization dawned on Wen Ian. "Speaking of that, what exactly is your ability?" Zhang Hao pondered briefly before answering. "I'm still not entirely certain. All I know is I can absorb animal flesh to strengthen my physique." When Ian gave him a thumbs up. "Then you'll be our team's frontline tank from now on." Zhang Hao patted his chest confidently. "No joke, I could take down low-level zombies with one strike of my staff." Wen Yishu chimed in promptly. "Nice work, Hao." Lin Shinran continued eating vigorously and raised a thumb with one free hand to show her agreement. Lin Shinran alone ate nearly half of all the mutated beast meat, and the rest was shared among the remaining people. Once the meal ended, when Ian handed the last strength pill to Wen Yishu, asking Su Wanqing and Lin Xueqing to monitor her during the process. Only equipment for his sister and Su Wanqing remained to be sorted out. He thought for a moment and remembered the pile of mutated beast skeletons out in the yard. Bones harvested from these creatures might produce sturdier armor. He walked outside into the courtyard, where the cleaned skeletons lay scattered. All flesh and pelts had already been brought inside the villa. He picked up a hind leg bone. Liquid metal from his combat suit formed a dagger, and he carved the bone into thin slabs. After tinkering for some time, he held up an uneven bone fragment and opened the upgrade panel. Item: Bone Shard. Energy required for material upgrade, 20 points. Energy required for design upgrade, 20 points. Energy required for function upgrade, 20 points. Energy required for item modification, 100 points. Current energy points, 1893 points. He activated the 3 basic upgrade options. Mysterious energy washed over the bone slab, and when the transformation finished, an object resembling a compass needle rested in his palm. He opened its information panel. Item: Rotating blades. Info: the blades spin automatically while moving at high speeds. Equipped with an efficient solid-state battery, they can operate continuously for 1 full day. He gritted his teeth and chose to modify the equipment once more. When the modification finished, he opened the status panel again. Item: Rotating blades traction variant. Info: the spinning blades generate traction upon reaching high rotational speeds, effective only against living creatures. Traction range: 5 meters, maximum traction force, 100 kilograms. The traction effect can be remotely controlled with the brainwave wristband. He noticed a silvery wristband attached to the blades. He picked up a bone from the ground, gripped the blade, and sliced downwards. The bone was cut cleanly, as if chopping soft vegetables. He extended a strand of liquid metal and made another slash. A 1 centimeter deep scratch appeared on the bone. When Ian gasped, its sharpness was comparable to the liquid metal blades he could form himself. He abandoned further testing the weapon. One careless mistake could cost him his life. He crafted another set of rotating blades and pulled another bone from a skeleton. He swung again. This time there was noticeably greater resistance. Much like cutting sugarcane with a woodcutter's machete. He pondered quietly. Each modification seemed to raise the equipment's overall quality to a new tier. After modifying this second set of rotating blades, he headed back into the villa. The great hall was empty. He found the shed skin of the mutated serpent, tore off a section, and wrapped it around the blades. He walked to his younger sister's room and found everyone inside. Zhang Hao sat on a chair, while Zhang Jiai lay unconscious on the bed. His sister was in the bathroom refining the strength elixir, with Su Wanqing and Lin Xueqing keeping watch beside her. Lin Shinran was nowhere to be seen. He assumed she had returned to her own room to rest, and thought nothing of it. When Ian pulled out his phone, marked the nearest hospital on the map, and handed the device to Zhang Hao. "This is the closest hospital. If we can manage tomorrow, we'll head there to bring back medicine or locate a medical survivor." Zhang Hao glanced briefly at the screen and nodded. "It's our best option." When Ian chatted with Zhang Hao for a while until his sister stepped out of the bathroom. He handed the rotating blades to her, explaining how to operate the weapon and listing all safety precautions. then left the room and returned to the hall. He walked into the kitchen and retrieved the blood-burst spirit cat meat he had left in the oven. He broke off a small piece and tasted it. Not bad at all. He split the remaining meat into 2 dried slabs and stowed them inside the storage compartment of his combat suit. A wave of warmth spread through his body, and his skin flushed faintly. He clenched his fists. His strength had clearly increased. He paid no mind to the heat surging inside him, as the item description stated the effect would fade within 30 minutes. When Ian reached his bedroom door and took off his Doomsday combat suit, the suit reshaped into its robotic form and activated Sentinel mode. He stepped inside, locked the door behind him, and slipped beneath the warm covers in the dark. The soft mattress enveloped him. Weariness washed over him, and he quickly drifted off to sleep. Early the next morning, when Ian stretched as he woke, he had slept deeply and even enjoyed a pleasant dream. Still, his body ached faintly, with a dull soreness lingering around his waist. He rubbed his bleary eyes. Sunlight seeped through the curtains. A sudden jolt of panic sent cold sweat rolling down his back. The quilt beside him bulged, shaped like a person lying there. His nerves went taut. He rapidly reviewed everything that had happened the night before. He had locked the door, and the combat suit stood guard outside. How could anyone have gotten in? Had they slipped through the sealed windows? Carefully, he gripped the edge of the quilt and threw it back. Then he pulled it over again in shock. He thought he was still dreaming. He slapped his cheeks twice. Pain. This was no dream. He prepared to slip quietly out of the room, but the figure beneath the covers stirred, woken by his movement. A pair of small hands pushed the quilt aside, revealing Lin Shinran's lovely sleepy face. She blinked drowsily and met Ian's gaze. Time seemed to stand still. When Lin Shinran registered the situation, she quickly glanced down under the covers, and her mind went blank for a moment. Embarrassment and frustration welled up. She was about to cry out, but when Ian clamped a hand over her mouth in time, if others heard, he would never be able to clear his name. Lin Shinran swatted his hand away. The cat ears atop her head twitched with anger as she whispered sharply, "You're impossible." When Ian covered her mouth once more, urgency in his tone. "Calm down first. Let's sort out exactly what happened." Tears glistened in Lin Shinran's eyes, her voice trembling. "Look at the situation we're in. Are you planning to pretend nothing took place?" When Ian stumbled over his words, then asked, "Wait, why are you in my bed?" Lin Shinran froze, speaking hesitantly. "Didn't you invite me last night?" When Ian stared blankly. "When did I do that?" Lin Shinran looked away guiltily. "When you gave me the cat paw, you told me to come over and keep you company." She had harbored quiet feelings for him, yet she never imagined events would escalate this far. When Ian gaped and pointed at himself, "Me? Even if I asked you to stay for a while, shouldn't you have gone back to your own room after falling asleep? Why spend the whole night here with the lights off?" Lin Shinran buried her face under the quilt and mumbled, "I ate too much mutated flesh and grew drowsy, then passed out." A thought suddenly occurred to her, and she poked her head out again, pouting. "Even if I fell asleep, you shouldn't have taken advantage of the situation. You must have done this on purpose." When Ian felt a surge of helplessness, he had not anticipated the modified spirit cat meat carrying such potent stimulant properties. He held up a hand to cut her off. "Clear your head first. What do you want us to do now?" Lin Shinran fell silent, unsure how to respond. After a long pause, she shook her head gently. "I don't know." When Ian voiced his idea, "How about this? We treat last night as an accident. I am not someone who shirks responsibility. If you are willing to give us a chance, we can be boyfriend and girlfriend. If you are not, I will do everything I can to make amends to you." He met her eyes sincerely. "Can we agree on that?" Lin Shinran nodded numbly. Relief washed over when Ian once she agreed. "I'll head out first. Take your time to collect yourself." He grabbed the pajamas scattered across the floor, pulled them on quickly, and left the bedroom. The Doomsday combat suit stood faithfully on guard outside. He deactivated Sentinel mode and told it to stand aside. When Ian sank onto the sofa in the great hall, the faint scent of another person still lingering on his clothes. He shook distracting thoughts aside. Survival remained the priority in this apocalyptic world. He began planning the day's agenda. The villa complex was temporarily safe, yet supplies such as food, medicine, and basic necessities were running low. He planned to visit the hospital first to find treatment options for Zhang Jiai, then raid supermarkets to gather more resources. Their current food reserves could sustain them for another 3 to 4 days. After further consideration, he finalized the schedule. He prepared breakfast and called everyone to the dining table. The group sat down to eat. His sister turned to Su Wanxin and complained. "Wanxin, can you get your fox spirit to quiet down? It whimpered nonstop late last night and kept me awake." Su Wanxin sighed. "I'll try talking to it later, though I doubt it will listen. When Ian glanced at Lin Shinran, who kept her head down eating with flushed cheeks, and steered the conversation elsewhere. Hey sis, has Jai woken up yet? His sister shook her head. Not yet. When Ian nodded. Later on, you, Zhang Hao and I will head to the hospital to see if we can find a cure. Everyone else stays behind to guard the villa. No one raised objections. After finishing breakfast, when Ian returned to his bedroom, picked up his backpack, and spotted a faint stain on the bed sheets. He sighed, set the backpack down, and replaced the sheets and covers. He ordered Xiao Shi to incinerate the used bedding. Once the task was done, liquid metal flowed over his body to form the combat suit. He grabbed his backpack, called for Zhang Hao and Wen Yishu, and walked out of the villa. The three arrived before the armored vehicle, and when Ian opened its upgrade panel. Item, light armored vehicle. Energy required for basic upgrade, 500 points. Energy required for design upgrade, 500 points. Energy required for functional upgrade, 500 points. Energy required for equipment modification, 2,500 points. Current energy points, 1573. When Ian's eyelids twitched. Wow, upgrading the vehicle cost just as much as upgrading his armor. Still, he gritted his teeth and selected the upgrade. Energy points could be earned back easily. Mysterious energy enveloped the vehicle, blurring its outline. Zhang Hao and Wen Yishu watched on, no longer surprised by such sights. 1 minute later, the energy faded, revealing a far more robust armored vehicle. Thickened steel plating covered the front, fitted with 5 sharp blades stretching from the windshield all the way down to the chassis. A small turret had been mounted on the roof, with a dark gun barrel protruding out. The rotating turret allowed the machine gun to fire in a full 360-degree arc. Zhang Hao pointed at the vehicle, his hands trembling. This is also from your ability? That's incredible. Wen Yishu stared open-mouthed for a long moment before speaking. Brother, if you had this power before the apocalypse, we would have struck it rich. A smile formed under Wen Ian's face mask. The energy points were well spent. Once the others recovered from their shock, he said, this is only the start. Let's get in. As they climbed aboard, they were stunned all over again. The vehicle housed the remotely controlled turret, radar detection, a 360-degree surround view system, an oxygen circulation unit, and even an onboard restroom, packed with every conceivable function. Zhang Hao ran his hands over the control console and sighed. Boss, can you modify one for me someday? When Ian retracted the liquid metal covering his head and smiled. We'll see. Kill enough mutated creatures, and I'll get you one within a month. Zhang Hao took off his helmet and pouted. Sure, you're just handing me empty promises again. When Ian chuckled and familiarized himself with the driving controls, Zhang Hao sat in the passenger seat to learn turret operation, while Wen Yishu opened a firing port, releasing the rotating blades to control them with telekinesis. Once he grew accustomed to the controls, when Ian pressed hard on the accelerator, Wen Yishu lurched backward unexpectedly and yelped, slamming against her seat. The rotating blades outside nearly slipped out of her telekinetic grasp. She rubbed the back of her head and complained. Brother, warn me before you speed up next time. When Ian smiled sheepishly. All right, I'll remember. They drove along the highway. Ordinary zombies were few and far between, replaced by large numbers of Tier 1 zombies. The vehicle's powerful engine crushed every zombie blocking the road against the front blades, clearing a path unimpeded. The armored car crashed through the hospital entrance barrier and pulled up in front of the inpatient building. The three climbed out and locked the doors. Zhang Hao was about to walk inside when Ian held him back, his tone grave. Wait, it's far too quiet here. Something feels wrong. Zhang Hao looked confused. What's wrong with the place? When Ian explained. The villa district was quiet when we took it over because mutated beasts inside hunted all the zombies. There isn't a single zombie in sight here, which means some extremely dangerous creature may be lurking within. Zhang Hao frowned. What do we do then? We came all this way. Should we look for another hospital? When Ian shook his head. No, we just need to stay cautious. Stick close together and don't separate. After issuing the warning, when Ian stepped forward and led the way inside, the hospital was deserted, with only faint bloodstains scattered across the floors. They reached the pharmacy. The door hung ajar, and the interior remained neat. They stepped inside, closed the door behind them, and began searching for medicine. 10 minutes passed before they realized a critical problem. Though countless medicines lined the shelves, none of them knew which ones could treat Zhang Jiai's condition. They had no choice but to gather medications whose effects they recognized. Zhang Hao turned to Wen Ian. And what now? Should we carry all of these away? Wen Ian pondered. Transporting every drug was impossible. This was an armored vehicle, not a transport truck. He resolved to search the hospital for surviving medical staff first. In his opinion, with the three of them working together, few threats could endanger them at this stage. He turned to the others. Let's go. We'll look for surviving doctors and nurses. They searched floor by floor. First floor, empty. Second floor, still empty. Third floor, also deserted, though they spotted several unknown tentacles along the corridor walls. When Ian poked one tentacle with his finger, it instantly recoiled upward. They reached the fourth floor, and the sight sent a chill down their spines. Soft lights illuminated the corridor. A nurse carried a tray from the nurse's station toward a ward, and the steady beep of medical equipment echoed from the rooms. This floor looked as if the apocalypse had never arrived, a stark contrast to the rest of the building. The only sign of ruin was thick tentacles spreading across the walls and floor. When Ian stepped forward to stop the nurse before she entered the ward and spoke politely. "Excuse me, miss. Could you tell us what happened here?" The nurse halted and stared at him with hollow eyes. When she saw the high-tech combat suit worn by Wen Ian, a flicker of awareness returned to her gaze. She suddenly grabbed his arm excitedly, dropping her tray. Wen Ishu caught it with telekinesis and set it gently aside. This small gesture convinced the nurse to trust them. She said eagerly, "Are you military? Special forces? Thank goodness. We're saved." Wen Ian quickly composed himself, saluting sharply. "Yes, ma'am. We belong to the Wolf Warrior Special Forces. We need you to brief us on the current situation in this hospital." She nodded rapidly. "Of course, I'll tell you everything." When the apocalypse broke out, hordes of zombies flooded the hospital, throwing everything into chaos. Fear flashed across her face as she spoke. "I hid in an office and survived the initial outbreak. Later I heard from colleagues that a terminally ill cancer patient awakened an ability and cleared all the zombies inside the hospital. We were all grateful to him, but then he suddenly lost control. His body swelled up and transformed into a monster. He began attacking everyone indiscriminately. We tried to flee, but he sealed all exits with his tentacles. We had nowhere to run. He herded us onto the 4th, 5th, and 6th floors. Every so often, someone gets dragged away and eaten." Despair filled her eyes. She knelt and begged Wen Ian, "Please, you have to get us out of here." Her stomach rumbled loudly at an inopportune moment. Wen Ian helped her stand, pulled a compressed biscuit from his backpack and handed it to her. "Eat something first. Do you know where the doctors are?" The nurse nodded and pointed down the corridor. "They're in the doctor's office. I'll take you there." She led them to the office. They pushed open the door and saw a middle-aged man sitting in a chair, lost in thought. The nurse knocked on the doorframe. "Dr. Yang, military rescuers are here. They have questions for you." Dr. Yang spun around, a look of joy spreading across his face. "Wonderful news, comrades. You've finally arrived. Whatever you need, just ask." When Ian nodded and explained, "One of our allies has remained unconscious for more than 12 hours. We were hoping you could tell us if there is any way to treat her." Dr. Yang looked confused. Unconsciousness can stem from many different causes. Some are only temporary fainting spells, while others involve brain damage that can leave a person comatose. We would need a brain CT scan on the patient to make an accurate diagnosis. Inside his combat suit, when Ian frowned, Zhang Jia hadn't been brought along, which meant they would need to go back to fetch her if a CT scan was required. The current situation was unstable. Bringing her here recklessly could put her in danger. They first had to eliminate the threat inside this building. Just to be safe, when Ian decided to ask one more question. "Dr. Yang, can you write down some medication suitable for treating this condition?" Dr. Yang frowned. "I can, but random medication will do very little to help someone in a coma. To wake them up, we need targeted treatment." When Ian nodded, "I understand. Please draft a list of medicines first." He had no intention of administering drugs blindly. If all other options failed, he would have to attempt modifying the pharmaceuticals. Dr. Yang said nothing further and wrote out a list of medications before handing it over. When Ian glanced at it and stored the list away, he then pulled a compressed biscuit and a bottle of mineral water from his backpack and offered them to the doctor. "Thank you, Dr. Yang. Next, we will try to eliminate the source of danger inside the hospital." Dr. Yang thanked him repeatedly. When Ian turned to the nurse beside him, "Miss Nurse, what's your name? Why haven't you tried to escape this place?" The nurse sighed. "You can call me Jingjing. We've longed to get away. We even tried tying bed sheets together to climb out the windows. But those who attempted to flee were spotted as soon as they reached the window ledge on the 3rd floor. Tentacles dragged them away, and they were consumed on the spot." When Ian frowned and fell into thought, he named this threat the Aberrant. From Jingjing's account, the Aberrant possessed an ability similar to the unlimited proliferation of cancer cells, coupled with a degree of intelligence. It was keeping humans captive to hunt them gradually. As for what caused its transformation, it was likely that absorbing far too many zombies in a short span rapidly boosted its power, compounded by the inherent instability of its ability. To kill the aberrant, the first step was cutting off its food supply, and the second was locating its main body. He turned toward Jingjing. Jingjing, are all the survivors in the hospital gathered here? Jingjing nodded. Yes, nearly everyone. It herded all survivors into one area for easier control. When Ian gave a slight nod and asked another question, are there any spacious rooms on these floors, large enough to hold everyone? Jingjing thought for a moment. There's an intensive care unit on the 5th floor. It might fit all of us. When Ian's eyes lit up, show me the way. I can, Jingjing agreed. As long as we don't head downstairs, the tentacles won't attack us. Guided by Jingjing, they arrived at the ICU. More than a dozen patients lay on the beds, all listless, as though they had surrendered all hope. Several nurses carried out their work mechanically. They froze when they saw Wen Ian. He raised a finger to his lips, signaling them to stay quiet. The nurses understood and continued their duties, yet they kept stealing glances at him. The ICU had 2 windows. When Ian walked up to one pane and opened the upgrade interface. Item, glass window. Energy required for material upgrade, 10 points. Energy required for design upgrade, 10 points. Energy required for functional upgrade, 10 points. Energy required for item modification, 50 points. Current energy points, 963. When Ian activated all available upgrade options, the window instantly renewed. Its frame fused seamlessly into the surrounding wall. The glass transformed into brand new double glazing with a light transmittance of 99.9999, so transparent one could barely tell glass was there upon casual observation. He opened the item information panel. Item, Nan Alloy Shared Load Window. Information, window constructed from nanoscale alloy. It distributes external impact evenly, spreading all force across the glass surface and adjacent wall structure. When Ian threw a punch against it, the glass did not shift an inch. The impact dispersed evenly in all directions. He repeated the process to upgrade and modify the second window as well. The working nurses watched in stunned silence. One nurse nearly dropped the objects in her hands, but when Ishu caught them with telekinesis in time. Some bedridden patients and their family members stared in shock and began whispering among themselves. A boy of 12 or 13 shook his mother's arm. Mom, look, that person in the robotic suit is doing magic. His mother looked up, utterly dumbfounded. A young man in the next bed woke from rest, looked toward the windows, and widened his eyes in shock. Am I seeing things? Is this an alien invasion? When Ian walked calmly toward the ICU's only main entrance and brought up the upgrade interface again. Item, electric sliding door. Energy required for material upgrade, 50 points. Energy required for design upgrade, 50 points. Energy required for functional upgrade, 50 points. Energy required for item modification, 250 points. Current energy points, 803. Without hesitation, he selected every upgrade and modification option. The door underwent a drastic transformation. Its original plastic texture vanished, replaced by thick, unknown alloy, and the door frame merged perfectly with the wall, presenting a sleek, futuristic appearance. He pulled up its information panel to check. Item, Shape Memory Smart Alloy Door. Information, heavy-duty smart alloy door integrated with an onboard intelligence system, operable remotely via connected devices. He registered his biological data and linked Xiaoxi to its intelligence system, then nodded in satisfaction. Ever since witnessing humanity's cruelty in the early days of the apocalypse, he no longer trusted strangers fully. Once finished, he walked to the nurses' station. Facing the nervous nurses, he asked, "Who is the head nurse here?" All the nurses turned toward a composed, middle-aged woman. She lifted her gaze and met his eyes calmly. "I am the ward head nurse. Who are you?" Jingjing, who had come with him, quickly spoke up. "Head nurse, they are from a special military unit." The head nurse looked surprised and pressed further. "If you serve in the military, please show me your identification." When Ian shook his head and made up an explanation. "We belong to a special detachment. We carry no formal ID. Our equipment serves as sufficient proof." The head nurse watched him with a faint, knowing smile and shifted topics. "What do you need from me?" When Ian paid no mind whether she suspected his story and spoke plainly. "I have reinforced the doors and windows. I need you to move all survivors here to keep them safe from the aberrant outside." The head nurse nodded. "I will do my best to cooperate with your plan, though I cannot guarantee everyone will agree to relocate." "That is acceptable. Move as many as you can." When Ian paused, "By the way, do you know where the aberrant's main body is located?" The head nurse thought briefly before answering. The aberrant you speak of must be that former cancer patient. From what I know, its core rests between the windows on the 6th floor. She paused and gestured to another nurse beside her. This is Anren. She was the nurse assigned to care for that patient. You can ask her for further details. With that, the head nurse said no more, gave a few instructions to the other nurses, and left. When Ian turned toward Anren. Nurse Anren, could you tell me what happened? Anren hesitated for a moment before beginning her account. He was a veteran soldier, only in his early 30s when he was diagnosed with cancer. He never gave up and actively followed treatment, yet the illness progressed to its terminal stage. When the apocalypse struck, his cancer mutated into an ability. He was overjoyed at first and told me he could freely control his cancer cells. Watching zombies rampage everywhere, the sense of duty he carried as a soldier drove him to act. He quickly cleared all zombies on one floor. But soon he discovered he could never fully restrain his cancer cells. Any zombie contaminated by his cells began endlessly dividing and absorbing biomass, all of which eventually flowed back into him. He realized how grave the situation was. He tried every method to eliminate the cancer cells within himself, surgical removal, incineration, nothing worked. Once word spread that he could exterminate zombies, people kept drawing more undead toward him. As his cancer cells multiplied beyond his control, he transformed into a monster. After hearing the full story, when Ian sighed, another tragedy born out of human nature. If he had been granted more time to adapt, he might have grown into a powerful ability user. He prepared to leave when Jingjing suddenly grabbed his arm and pleaded. Sir, when you head out, can you also save my younger brother? When Ian cut her off before she could finish. Rest assured, once we leave this area, I will contact headquarters immediately to arrange rescue for your brother. He intended to keep his word. He possessed a military satellite phone. Placing the call would be simple. Whether the military could reach the boy was another matter entirely. Relieved, Jingjing thanked him repeatedly. The three of them proceeded to the 6th floor, where far more fleshy tentacles wriggled across the space. One could easily step on them if careless. At the end of the converging tentacles stood a ward, the likely location of the creature's core. When Ian held off launching an attack, waiting for all survivors on the 6th floor to evacuate, liquid metal coalesced into a sharp blade in his right hand, while a cluster of machine gun barrels formed along his left forearm, forming a minigun array. Time ticked by. Survivors on the 4th and 5th floors had fully evacuated, and people on the 6th floor began filing out one after another. Then chaos erupted. A young woman inside the ward screamed. What? The military has arrived? What about my husband and son who died? What was all that suffering for? A nurse cautiously stepped out of the ward, trying to soothe her. Ma'am, please calm down. Help us here now. Everything will get better. The woman gripped a fruit knife tightly, waving it wildly and shouting. Why didn't the military come sooner? If they had arrived just one day earlier, none of this would have happened. She stormed out of the ward, still swinging the blade, and spotted when Ian and his two fully equipped companions. She screamed hysterically. You have all that advanced gear. Why couldn't you come earlier? This is all your fault. She raised the knife to stab at the tentacles on the ground. Before she could strike, several machine gun bullets tore through her body, splattering blood. Her eyes filled with resentment and despair as she collapsed to the ground. Following Xiaoxi's previous suggestion, hundreds of rounds of ammunition had been stored inside the combat suit. Her death barely disrupted the evacuating crowd. After enduring the horrors of the early apocalypse, people had grown numb to death. When Ian turned to refocus on the aberrant's core, only to notice the tentacles surrounding the woman's body twitch violently and begin trembling. His heart sank. The creature's tentacles had been roused by the scent of fresh blood. He shouted toward the fleeing crowd. Run! The monster has woken up. Panic erupted. Everyone rushed toward the stairwell. Many stumbled amid the chaos, triggering a stampede. Tentacles coiled around the woman's corpse and dragged it away. The remaining appendages went berserk, lashing out wildly to seize the fleeing survivors. When Ian spoke through the squad communication channel, engage, he charged toward the ward housing the aberrant, swinging his blade. Several thick tentacles were severed and fell to the floor, yet they continued writhing and reattaching themselves to intact tendrils nearby. Two rotating razor blades flew forth. Their targeted suction latched onto tentacles, shredding them relentlessly. Zhang Hao swung his combat gauntlet, slamming it against the tentacles. Each blow dented the flesh, sending the appendages crashing against the walls, only for the indentations to heal visibly in moments. When Ian reached the ward entrance first, inside, countless tentacles writhed, and a massive fleshy sphere sat at the room's center. A gaping maw on the sphere continuously contracted, chewing the woman's body that had just been dragged inside. He opened fire on the sphere with his minigun, but dense tentacles blocked every shot, preventing any meaningful damage. He tried launching a palm-mounted energy cannon. A sapphire blue energy beam slammed into the tangled tentacles, carving out a charred hollow that sealed shut almost instantly. His mind raced. He still held one devastating weapon, the dark energy bomb stored in his backpack. However, his interface warned the bomb's blast radius spanned 100 meters. Detonating it would put him directly within the explosion zone. Worse still, the blast would almost certainly kill every survivor remaining in the building. He considered retreating. None of his current attacks could penetrate the fleshy sphere's defenses. He was quickly running out of options. Just as he prepared to pull back, the fleshy sphere fully awakened. Several tentacles extended beneath it to lift its bulk off the ground. The erratic surrounding tentacles gained purpose, striking toward Wen-Ian from every direction at once. Wen-Ian's pupils shrank. He swung his blade rapidly to fend off the assault and contacted Xiaoxi. "Xiaoxi, do you have a plan?" After 2 seconds of calculations, Xiaoxi replied. "Simulations indicate your odds of defeating the aberrant stand below 10%. Retreat is recommended." Ding. Enable Autonomous Combat Authority. Wen-Ian had no time to hesitate and confirmed activation. The moment the command registered, the liquid metal covering his suit seemed to boil. A huge fan assembly quickly formed on his back and spun at extreme velocity, shredding any tentacle that drew near. Twin turrets materialized on his shoulders, locking onto incoming tentacles and firing with precise aim. The immediate pressure eased. He glanced back toward the ward doorway and saw it completely blocked by masses of tentacles. A chill ran through him as he hacked desperately at the tentacles clogging the exit. Outside the ward, Zhang Hao and Wen Yishu faced equally dire odds. After the aberrant awakened, Zhang Hao was caught off guard. Tentacles wrapped tightly around his limbs, stretching him spread-eagled. Driven by the threat of death, he unleashed his full strength and tore free. Wen Yishu's combat rhythm shifted. She started with both floating razors attacking, then assigned one to offense and one to defend against tentacles creeping up behind her. Soon both blades were needed purely for defense. She hovered in mid-air, lifted by telekinesis, dodging constant strikes from the ground tentacles. Intense sustained use of her mental powers left beads of sweat covering her forehead. While the two struggled to hold their ground, Wen-Ian inside the ward adjusted his strategy. Abandoning attempts to cut through the blocked doorway, he sliced apart a section of the adjacent wall and burst outside. He broadcast through the squad channel. "Fall back to the ICU on the 5th floor." Zhang Hao took only a few steps before a tentacle coiled around his combat gauntlet. He pulled hard, and the tentacle lurched forward before snapping back. A curse escaped Zhang Hao beneath his helmet. "Damn it, it's fishing for me." The brief delay allowed more tentacles to swarm his position. The fleshy sphere seemed to identify Zhang Hao as the squad's weakest point, directing the bulk of its tentacles to restrain him. One of Wen Yishu's razors sliced past him, severing the tentacles binding his limbs. Zhang Hao turned and saw more tentacles sealing off every escape route behind him. Wen-Ian recognized the predicament. No matter how great Zhang Hao's strength was, it was nearly useless against these resilient regenerative tentacles. His gaze swept sideways and caught sight of a fire cabinet. An idea sparked. He slashed open the cabinet door with his blade and retrieved a fire axe, opening the upgrade panel. Item: Fire Axe. Energy required for material upgrade, 50 points. Energy required for design upgrade, 50 points. Energy required for functional upgrade, 50 points. Energy required for item modification, 250 points. Current energy points, 403. There was no time to waste. He selected all upgrades and modifications, then hurled the axe toward Zhang Hao. He shouted over the communication channel. "Zhang Hao, catch." The fire axe arced through the air. The aberrant sensed the threat, sending a tentacle to snatch the weapon mid-flight. Just as the tentacle was about to seize it, the axe abruptly altered course, tracing a U-shaped path to evade capture. It could only be Wen Yishu guiding its trajectory with telekinesis. The modified axe landed firmly in Zhang Hao's grip, completing its transformation the instant his hand closed around the handle. One side of the axe bore a broad cutting edge, while the other formed a heavy hammerhead. At the very top of the axe shaft jutted a short sharp spear tip. The grip was ergonomically shaped, radiating an aura of reliable security just by looking at it. The moment Zhang Hao grasped the battle axe, his bearings shifted, and the stifling frustration weighing on him vanished completely. He watched another tentacle lash toward him, cleaving it apart with a single effortless swing. He moved unimpeded through swarms of surging tentacles. With Zhang Hao's weakness remedied, they safely reached the 5th floor. From afar, they spotted several people pounding frantically against a closed door on the outside. When Ian had no idea what had transpired, he told Xiaoxi to unlock the main entrance. The group filed inside, and the door sealed shut once more, blocking the incoming tentacles. Only then did he see that the newcomers were a family. No sooner had they stepped inside than they erupted into chaos. He frowned at the disorder unfolding before him. A middle-aged woman was yanking a nurse's hair and hurling nonstop insults. A middle-aged man grappled violently with another young man, while an elderly woman sat on the ground throwing a wild tantrum. Enough! Everyone stop this at once. When Ian shouted sharply, his reprimand failed to halt the family. The elderly woman on the floor turned her accusations toward him instead. Can you soldiers not do something about them? They chased us all out. This old frame of mine is nearly broken from all this torment. It's unfair. Everyone's bullying me. I don't want to live anymore. When Ian took a deep breath, forcing down his boiling anger, he spoke to Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi, play back surveillance footage of everything that happened here at triple speed. Monitoring feeds materialized on the surface of the automated sliding door. The footage showed the middle-aged man and woman entering first. Their elderly mother stumbled outside from exhaustion, and tentacles were already closing in on the doorway. Seeing his mother stranded out there, the middle-aged man rushed back to help her. The middle-aged woman begged the others inside to lend assistance. Two kind-hearted people relented. At great risk, they hauled the elderly woman indoors just before the tentacles reached the entrance and slammed the door shut. Everything remained calm until the elderly woman realized her gold necklace had fallen outside. She grew restless. When no one was paying attention, she secretly pried the door open and slipped out to retrieve her necklace. The others tried to close the door, yet the middle-aged man blocked the control button, refusing to let it shut. The middle-aged woman planted herself firmly in the doorway as well. After picking up the necklace, the elderly woman was ensnared by a tentacle. Driven by survival instinct, she screamed for her son. Panicked, the middle-aged man roared at the crowd. Go save my mother. If she dies, none of you will get away with it. Those words ignited everyone's rage. Led by the young man, they dragged the middle-aged man and the woman blocking the doorway outside. A nurse seized the chance to press the control button, and the door slammed shut. The family became tangled in the incoming tentacles, struggling desperately. Abruptly, the tentacles slackened their hold, letting them break free. The family scrambled to beat against the door. When Ian surmised that his squad had severed the roots of those tentacles during their earlier retreat, which explained why the appendages lost strength and released the family. Once he understood the full story, a sharp blade coalesced in his hand. He shouted sternly once more, I will give you one final chance. Cease all hostilities. The elderly woman paid him no heed, convinced he dared not harm her. She even taunted him. Being a soldier makes you special? Go ahead and kill all of us. See how you explain that to your superiors. Meanwhile, the middle-aged woman had tackled the nurse to the ground, and the nurse could barely defend herself. Others tried to pull them apart, but the woman clung tightly to the nurse's hair, leaving everyone helpless. Elsewhere, the young man was badly battered. Though the middle-aged man had been dragged away, he still refused to back down. The sight made when Ian let out a bitter laugh. He brought his blade down in one swift motion. The elderly woman's head rolled across the floor, spraying blood everywhere. Several bystanders splattered with blood collapsed to the ground in terror. Silence fell over the crowd. Only the middle-aged couple continued shouting abuse, oblivious to the danger. When Ian walked toward the middle-aged man, the surrounding civilians scattered. The man thought they feared him and smirked arrogantly as when Ian approached. You soldiers ought to, his words cut short. His head had been severed from his body. When Ian picked up the head and carried it over to the middle-aged woman, tossing it carelessly at her feet, the woman released her grip on the nurse's hair at once. She trembled and looked up at when Ian, all bravado vanishing. She kowtowed repeatedly, begging for mercy. Sir, I was wrong. Spare me. When Ian spoke coldly. You are not truly sorry. You only fear death. A flash of silver light, and peace returned to the room. He swept his gaze across the crowd. Everyone stared at him in fright and edged away. Just then, loud pounding echoed from the doorway. Additionally, several tentacles slammed relentlessly against two windows. When Ian's expression turned grave, even he struggled to find a way to defeat the immortal monster outside. He began considering rushing out with one doctor and one nurse. He could do nothing for the rest. Bang, bang, bang. The pounding reverberated like a death knell. When Ian glanced at his remaining energy points, current energy points, 3, he grimaced. 3 energy points were barely enough for anything. It seemed they truly had reached a dead end. Bang, bang, bang. He turned toward the survivors, his gaze finally settling on Jingjing and Dr. Yang. He spoke over the squad communication channel. Zhang Hao, when we evacuate, take Dr. Yang and break through. Knowing this concerned his sister's safety, Zhang Hao replied solemnly, rest assured, I'll risk everything for her. The fleshy mass by the doorway seemed to shift its target. It abandoned the sturdy door and directed its assaults at the adjacent wall instead. Bang, bang, bang. Cracks spread across the wall after only a few impacts. When Ian messaged the squad, prepare for combat. Escape if you can. He and Zhang Hao moved to stand beside Jingjing and Dr. Yang respectively. Bang, bang, bang. The wall was covered in spiderwebbing fissures. He ordered Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi, activate combat mode. Liquid metal rippled across his body. A large rotary blade formed behind his back, twin miniature turrets materialized on his shoulders, and sharp blades extended from the backs of his hands. Though his transformed form looked bizarre, it exuded overwhelming power. Crash! The wall collapsed, opening a wide hole. Countless tentacles surged out, reaching for everyone. Civilians fled in all directions. When Ian called out over the squad channel, we're breaking out. He lifted Jingjing with one arm and charged toward the breach. The three cut through the chaos and reached the main entrance. When Ian triggered the door open, revealing the fleshy mass, larger than the doorway itself. Hordes of tentacles surged out from the entrance to attack them. When Ian cursed inwardly and tried to seal the door, but it was too late. Tentacles jammed the frame open, burdened by the people they sought to protect. When Ian and Zhang Hao could not fend off the sheer number of tentacles, both were sent flying. Only when Ishu evaded the strikes using her psychic powers. When Ian crashed heavily into a wall, a surge of pain roiling inside him. Jingjing, held in his arms, suffered severe impact from the momentum as well. She struggled to her feet, only for a tentacle to pierce straight through her abdomen. Her eyes widened as she stared at the wound. Squelch! The tentacle withdrew from her body and lunged toward Wen Ian. Before it could reach him, the turret on his shoulder blasted it to fragments. Jingjing crumpled to the ground. With her last strength, she looked toward Wen Ian. Please save my brother. When Ian was about to respond, but Jingjing breathed her final breath. He sighed. Even if he wanted to help her brother, she had told him nothing about the boy. He refocused on the battle. Dr. Yang met the same fate as Jingjing beside Zhang Hao. He stared at the fleshy mass by the entrance, his face ashen. Escape now seemed nearly impossible. Most of the people present had already perished. Some were devoured outright, others pierced by tentacles. Chaos consumed the scene, stripping away all pretense of humanity. When tentacles drew near, some shoved strangers aside to buy themselves time to run. Yet one mother shielded her 5-year-old child, stepping voluntarily into the path of an incoming tentacle. When Ian's gaze locked onto the boy, though the mother clung to one tentacle, another slipped past her, reaching for the child. When Ian tried to fire his turret to save the boy, but his momentary distraction left him open, and a tentacle sent him flying again. When he lifted his head, he witnessed a stirring sight. Nurse Anren rushed forward at the critical moment, hurling the boy backward. A tentacle pierced her body instead. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. She stroked the tentacle gently and whispered, Sean, I won't live to see you marry me. In that instant, every tentacle in the area froze completely. Blades of memory sliced through Sean's muddled consciousness. Scenes flashed through his mind. Anren, once my cancer goes into remission, will you be my girlfriend? Anren, my surgery succeeded. Will you be my girlfriend? Anren, your cancer has spread, but I will stay by your side. Once you recover, we'll get married. Anren, I'm sorry. I broke my promise. Sean, don't you dare run away again. Do you hear me? If you leave, I won't go on living. Anren, I awakened an ability. I can control the cancer cells inside me. We're going to win. Anren, the pain is terrible. I fear I'll lose control over the cancer cells again. Sean, don't be afraid. I'm here. Anren, stay away. I can't hold it back. Sean, I trust you would never hurt me. His memories blurred from this point, drowning in crimson. He could not recall what happened next, only that he seemed to have killed countless people. The fleshy mass began to contract, revealing a resolute human face within. He stared at Anren, pierced by the tentacle, and 2 streams of blood rolled down his cheeks. Carefully, he maneuvered his tentacles to draw Anren toward him. He reached out and brushed her cheek, murmuring softly, Anren, thank you for staying with me. I will join you soon. He set Anren gently on the ground. The surrounding flesh continued shrinking, gradually unveiling his entire form beneath the mass. Ha ha ha, I will win. Anren, I'm coming to marry you. He laughed wildly, his tone filled with madness and endless sorrow. He slowly drove his hand toward his chest. The tentacles behind him churned violently. Several tentacles wrapped around his arm to stop him, yet they wilted away, only for new ones to surge forward. Ignoring everything, he thrust his whole hand into his chest and wrenched it outward. A beating heart emerged, clutched in his palm. Tiny tentacles sprouted across the heart. The appendages behind him erupted into frenzy, lunging toward the organ in his grasp. He maintained his crazed grin and squeezed hard. The heart burst in his grip. A walnut-sized crystal core remained in his hand, and he tossed it away. He whispered, "Anrin, I won." Those words drained every last spark of life from him. His body collapsed beside Anrin. His eyes lingered on her, and then he breathed no more. All tentacles connected to Sean lost their power and fell to the ground. They wriggled briefly toward the crystal core before falling still forever. The core rolled across open ground. A middle-aged man nearby burned with greed and lunged for it. Just as his hand was about to touch it, the core slid sideways 2 meters away. The man froze, then threw himself forward again. Sure enough, the core shifted another 2 meters. Refusing to give up, he charged once more. This time, instead of sliding, it flew straight into Wen Yishu's hand. A floating blade hovered above the middle-aged man. Wen Yishu's teasing voice echoed from inside her helmet. "Mister, greed can get you killed." The man slumped to the ground. He stared fearfully at Wen Yishu in her black leather suit and swallowed hard, forcing an awkward smile. A misunderstanding, all just a misunderstanding. He scrambled backward, terrified the blade would drop at any second. Wen Yishu chuckled. "A misunderstanding? I choose not to see it that way." Under the man's horrified gaze, the blade landed precisely 1 inch in front of his legs. A shrill scream tore from his throat. He lost control of his bladder. Wen Yishu stepped back in disgust and ignored him. She tossed the crystal core toward Wen Ian, and it landed neatly in his palm. Wen Ian studied the core and opened his upgrade panel. Item: Mutated Ability Crystal Core convertible to 1,000 energy points. Energy required for purification, 200 points. Energy required for modification, 1,000 points. Current energy points, 523. He looked at the extra 520 energy points on the panel and felt a surge of delight. Truly fated lovers, even gifting him 520 energy points. He scanned the remaining dozen survivors. Not a single medical staff member remained alive. He sighed quietly. Their original objective had failed. They would have to head to the first floor to collect more medicine. Thankfully, the mother who had risked herself to protect her son survived, suffering only minor abrasions from blocking the tentacles. When Ian exited combat mode, Xiaoxi sent a reminder. "Master, energy reserves have dropped below 5%. Please replenish promptly." Though it pained him to part with his newly acquired energy, when Ian channeled 100 points into his armor, Zhang Hao walked over to Sean's lifeless body, pressed his palm against the tentacles covering the corpse, and activated his red-hot absorption ability. Once he finished absorbing all the tentacle tissue, he exhaled deeply. That felt amazing. If I fought him again now, we'd stand an even chance. When Ian rolled his eyes and clapped him on the shoulder. "Save the boasting. It's time to leave." When the survivors heard they planned to depart, they surrounded him. A young man asked cautiously, "Sir, what about us?" When Ian pondered for a moment, he resolved to lead them to the military base. It was not pure kindness. His energy reserves were far too low. Without additional gains, he would lack enough to upgrade and modify medical supplies once they returned. Escorting the survivors might draw more zombies, yielding extra energy points. He could also negotiate with the military to try and borrow a doctor. With that thought, he spoke. "I assume most of you have vehicles. Anyone without a car can ride with others. Follow behind my vehicle." The survivors lit up with joy. Having armed personnel lead the way drastically raised their odds of survival. 10 minutes later, 5 cars lined up behind when Ian's combat vehicle, and the convoy set off. The sun blazed high overhead at noon. As the vehicles traveled along the road, first-tier zombies were mowed down by mounted machine guns. Occasional second-tier zombies were eliminated by Wen Yishu's flying blades. When the convoy reached a point 2 kilometers outside the military base, the area teemed with second-tier zombies. A dozen of them surrounded the vehicles. When Ian and Zhang Hao stepped out to engage, these second-tier zombies no longer posed a serious threat to them. One Ian cleaved each one with a single strike, and Zhang Hao split them apart with every swing of his axe. The only complication was that the zombies prioritized the unarmed survivors in the convoy. After they eliminated all the second-tier zombies, 2 vehicles had been destroyed, and everyone aboard perished. Fewer than 10 survivors remained of the original group. When Ian sighed, Human life means so little at the end of the world. He walked past Zhang Hao and patted his shoulder. Let's move on. The two climbed back into their vehicle, and the convoy continued onward. Fortunately, they encountered no further zombie ambushes. The group arrived safely at the base gate. Several armed soldiers halted them and shouted, "Step out of the vehicles for routine inspection." The survivors climbed out obediently to submit to checks. Wen Ian also exited his vehicle, hoping to speak with the soldiers. The soldiers eyed Wen Ian's metallic armor warily and raised their guns. "Don't move. State your identity." Wen Ian lifted his helmet with a helpless expression. "Easy now, I'm on your side. My name is Wen Ian. Li Weiguo, your superior, knows me. Please send word to him." The soldier relaxed slightly upon hearing this, though he still kept his rifle raised. Another soldier stepped forward to consult his superior. Moments later, an officer hurried over. Wen Ian recognized him. He was the adjutant serving beside Li Weiguo. The adjutant's usual fiery temper was much subdued, and he spoke politely. "Mr. Wen, what brings you to the base? If you wish to enter, you will need to undergo inspection and registration according to protocol." Wen Ian shook his head. "I will not enter the base. I have come to negotiate a trade. A friend of mine lies unconscious, and I hope to borrow one of your doctors. I will send the doctor back unharmed once treatment is complete." The adjutant nodded. "That should be manageable. I can request approval. What will you offer in exchange?" When Ian pondered for a moment, he pretended to retrieve something from his vehicle, but in truth, he pulled out two crystal cores. Both had been purified, and one had undergone modification. He handed the two cores to the adjutant and explained, "This energy crystal core can power equipment. The other is an ability crystal core, capable of boosting an ability user's power. The energy crystal core is payment for borrowing the doctor. With the ability crystal core, I hope to purchase intelligence from you. I want the latest information from your research lab, especially findings regarding the origin of the zombie outbreak." The adjutant frowned. "I cannot make decisions about lab intelligence. I need to consult my superiors." He turned and left to seek instructions. After a short while, he returned carrying a briefcase and spoke to Wen Ian. "Your request for the doctor is approved. However, we cannot hand over all classified lab data. We can only provide investigation results on the zombie outbreak and select non-confidential documents." Wen Ian nodded and passed over the crystal cores. "Very well. I also ask that you provide research data on crystal cores at a later date." After exchanging items with Wen Ian, the adjutant extended a hand with a smile. "I will faithfully relay your request to command. Please to cooperate." Wen Ian shook his hand. "Please to cooperate. I will wait for your doctor in the vehicle." The adjutant nodded and departed, and when Ian returned to the car, he opened the briefcase and read through the documents, his expression growing pensive as he finished. Zhang Hao and Wen Ishu leaned over out of curiosity, and when Ian passed them the materials. From the documents, he learned that researchers had found no trace of viruses within zombie crystal cores or bodily tissue. Instead, they detected an entirely new form of energy. They named this energy dark energy. It was this dark energy that mutated humans unable to withstand it into the zombies roaming the world. Under the influence of this energy, human genes became extremely unstable, triggering all manner of mutations, such as crawlers and titan zombies. Those who successfully endured and adapted to dark energy experienced positive mutations, becoming what people called ability users. A thought suddenly struck him. He pulled out a second-order zombie crystal core and opened his upgrade panel. Item: Magical Energy Crystal Core convertible to 100 energy points. Energy required for purification, 20 points. Energy required for modification, 100 points. He focused his attention on the crystal core. The system referred to this power as magical energy. He trusted the system's classification far more than the military labs, even though he still knew almost nothing about the system itself. Two figures approaching in the distance pulled him out of his thoughts. One was naturally the adjutant. The other was a middle-aged man wearing a white lab coat. When Ian glanced at the two still reading documents and cleared his throat. "Hey, you two, put the materials away. The doctor is here." They snapped out of their focus and stowed the papers. When Ian stepped out of the vehicle to greet them, the adjutant made the introduction. "Mr. Wen, this is Dr. Chun, Chief Neurosurgeon." When Ian gave a slight nod. "Dr. Chun, thank you for coming. We need you to examine someone at our residence." Dr. Chun smiled and replied, "No trouble at all. The adjutant has briefed me on the situation." The two climbed aboard the vehicle, and they set off back toward the villa. The journey proceeded smoothly, when Ishu's flying blades eliminated every zombie along the road. Upon arriving at the villa, everyone exited the car. Dr. Chin spotted Huyin lying prone in the courtyard and pointed at the fox with trembling fingers. "Mr. Wen, is this your pet?" When Ian shook his head with a laugh and explained, "A teammate's companion. This is Huyin, a mutant red fox." Huyin noticed the unfamiliar Dr. Chun, wandered over, and sniffed him curiously. Dr. Chun flinched and hid behind When Ian waved and issued an order to Huyin, "Go rest elsewhere. Don't frighten the doctor." Huyin retreated reluctantly and lay back down. When Ian opened the front door and led Dr. Chun to Zhang Jiai's bedside, Lin Xinran and the others stepped inside upon hearing the commotion. After completing his examination, Dr. Chun frowned slightly. The patient's condition is not critical, yet a definitive diagnosis requires professional medical scanning equipment. It would be best to transfer her to the military base. They have complete facilities. When Ian frowned, he had no desire to enter the military base. For all his strength, he was no match for the armed forces as a whole. Furthermore, his unique ability would inevitably draw intense military interest. He risked being detained against his will if he went inside. With that thought, he shook his head. "There is no need. I know a relatively secure hospital nearby. We have cleared all zombies from its premises." Dr. Chen nodded and did not press the matter. The group set off once more, with Zhang Jiai settled on the rear passenger seat. Hospital, CT room of the outpatient building. Dr. Chen studied the images on the computer screen. His furrowed brows relaxed, and he smiled. "She is fortunate. There is a blood clot inside her skull and minor internal bleeding, but neither is life-threatening. I recommend intravenous treatment to halt internal hemorrhaging first. The intracranial clot will have to be absorbed naturally by her body." When Ian let out a quiet sigh of relief and nodded. "Understood. I must trouble you to oversee her treatment." Dr. Chun waved his hand. "It is simply my duty. No need for formal thanks." Dr. Chen began preparing medications and administering infusions. The sky blushed with sunset hues by the time treatment concluded. Dr. Chun turned to Wen Ian. "Treatment is finished. The time she takes to wake varies by individual. It could take up to a week, or she may regain consciousness at any moment." When Ian nodded slightly, "Will she require continued treatment afterward?" Dr. Chun removed his medical gloves. "No further intervention is needed. Her body must break down the cranial clot on its own." "Thank you, Dr. Chun. We appreciate you traveling all this way. I will drive you back now." As he spoke, he pulled a cloth-wrapped slab of spirit cat jerky, roughly the size of his palm, from his backpack and handed it over. "A small token of my gratitude." Dr. Chin accepted the gift without hesitation. The drive back was uneventful. Not a single second-order zombie crossed their path, and they reached the military base without incident. Wen Ian waited until Dr. Chun had entered the base before turning the vehicle around. 2 kilometers from the military base, on a forest trail, 2 8-meter-tall Titan zombies suddenly emerged in the middle of the road, blocking their path. Dense swarms of second-order zombies surrounded them from the woods on all sides. Everyone inside the vehicle felt a chill of dread. Even seasoned survivors such as them recognized the mortal danger posed by such vast numbers of zombies. A thought flashed through Ian's mind. Have we walked into an ambush? He spun around sharply and saw 2 more Titan zombies cutting off their escape route to the rear. His mind raced as he hastily formulated a plan. He spoke to Zhang Hao first. "Hao, take the wheel. I'm going out to deal with the zombies blocking the road ahead." He then turned to Wen Yishu. "Little sister, cover the zombies on both sides and protect Jiai." He added a warning. "If you manage to break through, leave without me. My combat suit has thrusters. I can escape on my own." Before they could respond, he threw open the door and jumped out. He rolled to absorb landing impact, raised his arm, and fired a repulsor blast straight at the Titan zombie's head. The Titan zombie raised an arm to block. The cerulean energy beam burned a charred cavity through its limb. Muscles writhed within the wound, sealing the damage at a visible rate. When Ian activated his suit thrusters, and sharp blades materialized on his forearms. Accelerating past the vehicle, he charged toward the front Titan zombie and swung his blades at its neck. The Titan zombie reacted swiftly, swiping toward the speeding Wen Ian. He dodged sideways mid-flight, twisted his body, and sliced off the zombie's hand. He maintained momentum and continued toward the creature's neck. As he brushed past, his blade carved a gash across its throat. He altered course to engage the second Titan zombie, intending to repeat the same tactic. This time, however, a massive fist hurtled toward him. He had no time to evade and crossed his arms to block instinctively. Boom! He was sent flying, crashing heavily into the jungle more than a dozen meters away. He struggled to climb out of the shallow crater, racked with agony as blood surged up his throat. He lifted his helmet visor and coughed up mouthfuls of blood. Gritting his teeth through the pain, he spoke. Xiaoxi retrieved the combat capsules from the storage compartment, along with the special Berserk Spirit Cat Jerky and enhanced mineral water. A mechanical arm extended from the combat suit, retrieving modified painkillers and the Berserk-inducing jerky and passing them to him. He swallowed a painkiller first, then chewed and swallowed the jerky in large bites before taking a deep gulp from the spring of vitality. Agony faded rapidly, and warm energy flooded every limb, instantly restoring him to peak condition. He closed his helmet mask and reignited his plasma thrusters. When he returned to the battlefield, he saw Zhang Hao already standing over the fallen Titan zombie, its severed head lying on the ground. Wen Yian messaged Zhang Hao over the squad comms to board the vehicle and prepare to retreat. The vehicle had barely begun moving when another Titan zombie appeared ahead. Wen Yian activated the suit's full combat mode, allowing Xiaoxi to take deep operational control. 8 mechanical spider legs unfolded from his back, twin machine gun turrets deployed over his shoulders, and his plasma thrusters shifted to his rear, controlled precisely by Xiaoxi. He piloted the suit straight toward the final Titan zombie, the turrets firing relentlessly at its eyes. The Titan zombie raised its thick arms to shield its face, intercepting the majority of the gunfire. Guided by Xiaoxi's precise calculations, when Ian braked into a V-shaped maneuver, slipping around the zombie's arms and diving upward to slash its head from its shoulders. The 8 spider legs automatically pried open the severed skull, extracted the crystal core, and stowed it in the rear storage compartment. The last Titan zombie collapsed, and the vehicle safely exited the encirclement. He exhaled in relief and prepared to activate his thrusters to catch up. Without warning, a shadow lunged at him from behind, moving far too fast for him to react. Xiaoxi responded first. The 8 spider legs hauled him sideways, barely dodging the strike. When Ian finally registered the threat, his eyes widening in shock. Incredible speed. He spun around, heart pounding, and beheld a pale black zombie with taut, well-defined muscles staring at him with an eerie grin. Sweat beaded on Wen Ian's forehead. Could this be a third-order zombie? It was still the early days of the apocalypse. He dared not underestimate the foe, tensing every muscle. The shoulder turrets unleashed continuous gunfire at the third-order zombie. Disdain flickered in the zombie's eyes. Bullets bounced harmlessly off its tough skin, inflicting no damage whatsoever. The urge to retreat rose within him. He asked Xiaoxi, "Can we take flight immediately?" Xiaoxi replied quickly, "Its speed allows it to strike us before thrusters achieve liftoff. Flight is not advised." When Ian frowned, he would have to fight it head-on. He steeled his resolve. To bolster his courage, he roared, "I refuse to believe you are impervious to my blade." He charged forward, and as he closed in, he saw the zombie's lips move. A hoarse, rasping voice reached his ears. Worthless, when Ian froze mid-charge. A storm of thoughts churned inside him. Zombies can speak. Can they truly still be classified as zombies? Would they evolve into a new form of humanity someday? Pushing the shock aside, he resumed his charge and slashed toward its neck. The zombie merely stepped backward and tilted its head to evade the strike, then calmly drove its foot into his abdomen. Bang! When Ian felt as though he had been hit by a truck, he flew dozens of meters away, crashing through countless trees. He lifted his helmet visor and vomited blood. A crushing sense of weakness washed over him, yet a faint, strange power slowly worked to mend his injuries. He could not defeat this third-order zombie through brute force. He needed a plan. He suddenly remembered the dark energy bomb in his backpack. If he could create a 100-meter gap and detonate it, he might stand a chance. A strategy took shape in his mind. He questioned Xiaoxi again. If we take a direct hit from its fist and reverse thrust simultaneously, can we open 100 meters of distance to detonate the dark energy bomb? Xiaoxi answered. The plan is theoretically viable, though deviations may occur in practice. When Ian gritted his teeth, I have no choice. I'll take the gamble. He coordinated every step of the plan with Xiaoxi and readied himself. Meanwhile, he looked up to see the third-order zombie watching him with folded arms, its gaze mocking. Liquid metal rippled across when Ian's combat suit. Plasma thrusters shifted position, an energy shield coalesced in his right hand, and a mechanical arm clutching the bomb folded behind his back. He charged the third-order zombie once more. Less than 10 meters away, he leaped high, raising his blade in his left hand while the shield guarded his torso. A sneer tugged at the third-order zombie's mouth as it threw a devastating punch. The instant impact loomed when Ian allowed his blade to liquefy and merge into the shield. He crossed both arms to absorb the blow. Boom! The shield caved inward, dissipating part of the force. The blow felt equivalent to colliding with a speeding train, hurling him rapidly through the air. At the exact same moment, chest-mounted plasma thrusters ignited. The rear mechanical arm extended, channeled energy into the dark energy bomb, and hurled it downward toward the third-order zombie. Already reeling from the massive impact, when Ian endured extreme acceleration from the thrusters. The gravitational load pushed his body to the absolute limit of human tolerance. Numbness spread through every limb, his vision darkened, and consciousness began to slip away. Xiaoxi took full control of the combat suit, engaging thrusters at low power to hold him suspended in midair. Minutes passed before when Ian regained awareness. He suffered tightness in his chest, ringing ears, nausea, and overwhelming weakness. He barely possessed the strength to lift his arms. He forced his eyes open and communicated with Xiaoxi mentally. Xiaoxi, what is the situation? A live feed appeared in his field of vision. He hovered high above the ground, and a massive semicircular crater stretched out below. Relief washed over him once he confirmed he was safe. The extreme physical strain followed by sudden relaxation brought a wave of crippling drowsiness. Alarm surged through him. He struggled to stay awake, constantly reminding himself not to lose consciousness. He needed to find a way to survive. Under mortal peril, his mind raced. His first thought was to upgrade and modify medical supplies. Perhaps he could craft enhanced healing medicine. He quickly discarded the idea. All medical supplies remained in the vehicle. Only a box of modified painkillers sat in his rear storage compartment. While they offered minor regenerative effects, they were far insufficient for his wounds. He recalled the mutated crystal core obtained from Sean at the hospital. It was worth attempting an upgrade and modification. With no other options available, he resolved to try anything. He instructed Xiaoxi to bring the mutated crystal core before his eyes and mentally summoned the upgrade panel. Item: Mutated Ability Crystal Core convertible to 1,000 energy points. Energy required for purification, 200 points. Energy required for modification, 1,000 points. Current energy points, 7943. When Ian paid no attention to his total energy reserves and immediately initiated the modification process. As soon as the crystal core finished transforming, he eagerly opened its information panel. Item: Cancerous Golden Core Trait Grafting. Description: Upon consumption, it grants cells select beneficial traits of cancer cells, drastically boosting the body's natural regenerative capacity. Even amid this critical situation, a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth after reading the information. He commanded the combat suit to feed him the strength elixir, and overwhelming drowsiness washed over him. Using the last shred of his consciousness, he gave Shi an order. Shi, retrieve the crystal core from the Tier 3 zombie, then carry me to a safe location. With that, he lost consciousness and fell into a deep sleep. After an unknown length of time, when Ian slowly roused, he sat up abruptly and scanned his surroundings, finding himself inside an unfamiliar room. The Doomsday combat suit stood nearby in humanoid form, standing guard. He had barely relaxed when intense hunger crashed over him, as if he had not eaten for 3 whole days and nights. Shi, hand me the dried meat and water from the storage compartment. The Doomsday combat suit fetched dried meat and a bottle of water from its storage space and passed them to him. After confirming the meat had not been modified, he began eating ravenously. In moments, he finished all the dried meat and gulped down 2 mouthfuls of water. The gnawing hunger faded. He clenched his fists and sensed changes within his body. He had made a full recovery. What was more, his overall strength seemed to have grown. He stood and donned the Doomsday combat suit, then spoke to Shi. Shi, what happened while I was asleep? She projected video footage onto his interface, starting from the moment the mechanical arm launched the dark energy bomb. The instant the dark energy bomb made contact with the Tier 3 zombie, pale black energy surged outward. A powerful shockwave engulfed everything within a 100-meter radius. The Tier 3 zombie was torn apart instantly at the blast center. Several Tier 2 zombies caught in the blast radius also exploded violently. The energy explosion came and went rapidly, dissipating into the air after only a few seconds. Watching this, he felt a surge of relief. Thankfully, he had not acted recklessly and tried to endure the dark energy bomb's blast. Otherwise, his injuries would have been far worse than the blow he had taken from the Tier 3 zombie. The video continued playing. Footage showed when Ian regaining his senses, modifying a crystal core and swallowing it. Once he slipped into slumber, she activated the plasma thrusters on the suit's back and flew toward the Tier 3 zombie. 8 spider-like limbs sliced open the creature's mangled skull, extracted the crystal core, and stowed it inside the storage compartment. Freed from the Tier 3 zombie's suppression, the surrounding Tier 2 zombies charged forward as a mob. She chose not to engage in combat. It reignited the thrusters, lifted off, and headed for the nearest buildings, eventually reaching the Old Town district. Mid-flight, the suit continuously evaluated environmental safety levels, finally settling on a residential building with the fewest zombies nearby. The suit landed silently on the rooftop. Utilizing its liquid metal properties, it unlocked the rooftop door and thoroughly inspected the building's interior. Once the area was confirmed secure, she laid Wen-Ian on a bed, and the suit shifted into humanoid mode to maintain watch. Watching Xi's textbook perfect handling of everything, Wen-Ian praised her. You did excellent work. She replied, "Thank you for your praise, master. I will keep improving." Wen-Ian surveyed the room. It bore no signs of recent habitation, likely abandoned even before the apocalypse began. He pulled back the curtains and peered outside. The sky was dim, with only a handful of broken street lamps still lit. Few zombies roamed the streets, though two sat inside a house conversing with one another. He nodded with satisfaction. This was an ideal hiding spot. Wait a moment. Two zombies talking? He told Xi to zoom in the feed for a closer look. Two zombies sat at a tea table in a residential living room, chatting. Their heads were noticeably larger than ordinary zombies, and they waved their arms now and then, seemingly debating something. No way, two intelligent zombies having a conversation. His mind raced as he pondered how to eliminate both of them without letting any escape. Even one survivor would become a major hidden danger. He carried no newly crafted equipment at the moment. The weapons traded from the military remained on his transport vehicle. While rummaging through the storage compartment, he spotted machine gun ammunition. A thought struck him. The bullets had not undergone modification yet. An alteration might grant them extraordinary effects. He wasted no time. Taking a single 7.62mm machine gun round, he opened the upgrade panel. Item, 7.62mm bullet. Material upgrade, 5 energy points. Design upgrade, 5 energy points. Function upgrade, 5 energy points. Direct item modification, 25 energy points. Current energy points, 6743. He selected all available upgrades. The bullet transformed rapidly, turning solid black with curved grooves carved along its surface, shaped to perfectly suit aerodynamic flight. He proceeded with direct modification. The bullet grew slightly heavier, with no other outward changes. He opened the information panel to check its properties. Item, 7.62mm tracking bullet target lock. Information, embedded with a tracking chip, automatically locks onto a target once fired. Joy welled up inside him. Tracking bullets were perfect for his current predicament. He upgraded and modified a second tracking bullet. Liquid metal flowed from the combat suit and condensed into a sniper rifle. Its only flaw was the absence of a scope. The disadvantage mattered little. The suit possessed built-in target locking and aiming functions, and with Xi's artificial intelligence support, his shots would almost always hit true. He steadied the rifle, waited for Xi to fine-tune his aim, and pulled the trigger. Bang! The bullet spun and accelerated mid-air, piercing the skull of one intelligent zombie in less than 0.2 seconds. Splat! The intelligent zombie's head burst open like a watermelon, splattering blood all over the second zombie sitting opposite it. The remaining intelligent zombie leaped up in fright and scrambled to take cover. Wen-Ian quickly chambered another round and aimed at the second zombie, but the creature slipped out of sight just before he could fire. Before vanishing, the zombie glanced toward his position. Wen-Ian clearly spotted a scar stretching across its face. What a coincidence! This was the intelligent zombie he had nearly killed during the zombie horde assault. He swiftly stowed the sniper rifle, jumped out of the window, and activated his thrusters to chase the scarred zombie. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw countless zombies pouring out from surrounding buildings. Several Titan zombies were also advancing toward him from the end of the street. His eyelids twitched. No wonder so few zombies wandered this stretch. It turned out he had stumbled straight into the zombie base camp. He flew into the living room where the zombies had been talking and scanned the area. The surviving intelligent zombie had already fled without a trace. Having escaped him twice, the creature earned a nickname in Wen-Ian's mind, Scar Zombie. He sighed, quickly retrieved the crystal core from the beheaded intelligent zombie, then smashed open another window and flew away. The instant he exited, multiple Tier 2 zombies jumped down from the rooftop and lunged at him. Caught off guard, he lost control and crashed onto the pavement. He immediately commanded the combat suit. Sharp blades sprouted from the backs of his hands, and he cut down every Tier 2 zombie clawing and biting at him. Dense swarms of Tier 2 zombies surrounded him on every street. More crowded the buildings, ready to pounce at any moment. Wen-Ian stared impassively at the horde. Only a few days into the apocalypse, he had endured countless brushes with death. He drew a deep breath and activated the suit's combat mode. 8 spider limbs extended from his back, and 2 plasma turrets unfolded from his shoulders. She spoke up in a timely warning. Master, the suit energy stands at 20%. A large battle looms. Replenishing power beforehand is recommended. Without hesitation, when Ian topped off the suit's energy reserves using his energy points. He then took out 2 Tier 2 zombie crystal cores and opened the upgrade panel. Item: Magic Energy Crystal Core convertible to 100 energy points. Purify Crystal Core, 20 energy points. Modify Crystal Core, 100 energy points. Current energy points, 7163. Item: Energy Shard. Information: contains vast quantities of pure energy. Touching it allows it to power electronic devices. He then took out a Titan Zombie Crystal Core and opened its upgrade panel. Item: Magic Strength Crystal Core convertible to 400 energy points. Purify Crystal Core, 80 energy points. Modify Crystal Core, 400 energy points. Current energy points, 7123. Item: Strength Concentrate. Information: upon ingestion, it continuously releases energy for 1 hour, doubling the consumer's strength. Note: maximum strength cannot exceed the original power of the Titan zombie this core came from. Once purification finished, liquid metal from the suit guided the grape-sized strength concentrate to his mouth. He forced it down, and the crystal settled in his stomach. Dissolved by gastric fluids, the crystal unleashed its energy. Violent power surged from his abdomen toward every limb and organ, multiplying his physical strength. He felt the surging power within him and roared to the sky. Attack! Tier 2 zombies all around the street charged toward him with snarls. He met them fearlessly, swinging the twin blades in his hands. Blood splattered everywhere his strikes landed. Though he seemed unstoppable, he knew his swordplay lacked consistent technique. One misstep would bury him beneath endless zombies, and he would stand no chance of survival. He opened the Bladework upgrade panel. Upgrade Bladework skilled requires 500 energy points. Current energy points, 7529. He upgraded without the slightest pause. Vast streams of unfamiliar memories flooded his consciousness. He pictured himself training tirelessly with blades for 2 months inside an empty pure white realm. The training forged deep muscle memory within his body. At that moment, a Tier 2 zombie seized an opening. It lunged forward as he finished a swing, caught between exhausted momentum and his next strike. Ingrained muscle memory made him twist sideways to evade the attack. He reversed his blade and sliced the zombie's head clean off. When Ian knew this level of skill was still insufficient, he chose to upgrade once more. Upgrade Bladework Proficient requires 1,000 energy points. Current energy points, 7132. This influx of memories was far more extensive than the last. Guided by an unknown man, he practiced swordsmanship nonstop for an entire year within the White Void. He digested these memories amid the ongoing battle. After slaying more than a dozen zombies, he fully mastered the techniques. Every movement of the Tier 2 zombies appeared full of flaws to him now. He was no longer trapped in a desperate predicament, weaving effortlessly through the horde as if taking a casual stroll. His blade work was more than enough to handle the current threat, yet every boost in power filled him with fascination. He opened the Bladework upgrade panel again. Upgrade Bladework Minor Accomplishment requires 5,000 energy points. Current energy points, 7438. Seeing his energy points continue to climb instead of drop, a smile formed beneath his helmet. In that case, he would push for another upgrade. This upgrade differed from all previous ones. Instead of flooding his mind with complete memories, the knowledge was stored like a compressed archive inside his head. He attempted to access it. The memories showed him traveling across countless perilous battlefields, facing constant mortal danger in every fight. Mid-combat, he found the blades extending from his hands awkward to wield. After one sweeping strike, he ordered the liquid metal to reshape them into 2 full-length long swords. With his refined blade work combined with the combat suit's advantages, no Tier 2 zombie could withstand a single blow. Bloody bursts marked every step he took. Some zombies slain by his blades had their crystal cores extracted by the spider limbs on his back. Others were processed too quickly for retrieval. He fought his way steadily forward. Any Tier 2 zombies attacking him from behind were impaled through the skull by she-controlled spider limbs. When the limbs pulled free, the crystal cores were transferred directly to the storage compartment. Zombies leaping down from above were mostly shot in the head by the shoulder-mounted plasma turrets. He cut a path from one end of the street to the other, never flinching even when confronted by 8-meter-tall Titan zombies. now that his strength surpassed that of the strength-focused Titan zombies. Combining his accomplished swordsmanship allowed him to defeat them with ease. When Ian lost count of how many zombies he killed along the way, nor how many crystal cores filled the storage compartment on his back, Scar Zombie appeared to realize the horde could not defeat when Ian. After an angry roar, all the attacking zombies retreated, dragging away every corpse left on the ground. When Ian gasped for breath and watched the retreat, relieved, he had only comprehended 1/3 of the compressed Bladework archive. He noticed progress slowed drastically once he stepped out of combat. He told She to convert the combat suit into ordinary clothing. Ever since he began grasping the advanced sword techniques, the full head covering of the armor felt stifling and hindered his senses. In the memories he had absorbed, he had fought countless life or death battles without any combat suit, relying only on himself and a single blade. He found a corner to sit against and checked his current energy point tally. Current energy points, 15938. A genuine smile spread across his face. He had never possessed so many energy points before. He had finally worked out the rules governing energy gained from zombie deaths. Ordinary early apocalypse zombies yielded 1 to 2 energy points, Tier 1 zombies roughly 20 points, and Tier 2 zombies around 100 points, matching the energy value obtainable from their crystal cores. Intelligent zombies granted 100 energy points, identical to Tier 2 zombies, while Titan zombies provided 300 energy points each. He opened the suit's rear storage compartment and stared at the pile of crystal cores inside. He counted them one by one. In total, 86 Tier 2 zombie crystal cores, 4 Titan zombie crystal cores, and 1 intelligent zombie crystal core. He converted 50 of the Tier 2 crystal cores into energy points and set the rest aside as strategic reserves. His energy point count rose to 20938. Judging from the requirements for the last system upgrade, he suspected the next threshold would be 10,000 energy points. The prior upgrade had taken an entire day, and this one might take even longer. He needed to make thorough preparations before initiating it. He was about to examine the intelligent zombie's crystal core when his ears pricked up. The sound of engine noise drifted through the air. He quickly sealed the storage compartment and disguised it as a regular backpack, then hid around a bend to observe. Moments later, 5 motorcycles roared into view. When Ian, watching from concealment, was surprised. Riding motorcycles and making such loud noise in the apocalypse? Were they reckless enough to court death? Or did their power make them fearless? The 5 motorcycles drew closer and slid to a halt not far from Ian's hiding spot. A man climbed off the lead bike, removed his helmet, and called toward the shadows. "Young man, no need to hide around the corner. Come out." When Ian's heart skipped a beat, this bold motorcyclist was clearly no ordinary person. Still, he possessed enough strength to remain calm, free from excessive worry. He stepped out from concealment with a grin, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, and teased. "Impressive, sir. Not many dare ride motorcycles making so much noise after the end of the world." He got a clear look at the leader, a young man with white hair, dressed in a gray denim set, and wearing a gold chain around his neck. He looked just like a wealthy heir from before the apocalypse. The white-haired man noted Ian's clean clothes, sharp imposing aura, and casual tone. He did not dare underestimate him and replied politely, "Just sheer luck. How about coming back to our base for a rest?" At that, a woman clad in tight black clothing climbed off another motorcycle. She took off her riding helmet, revealing long black hair, and smiled. "Young Master Huang, it's rare to see you invite someone so politely." Young Master Huang shot her a glance. "Meng Yao, don't stir up trouble." Meng Yao pouted and looked toward Ian playfully. "Handsome boy, what's your name? Want to come for a ride with me?" When Ian had originally planned to return to the villa after a short rest, encountering these two sparked his curiosity. He wanted to see what they were aiming for. He smiled faintly. "Sure. My name is Ian." Meng Yao shot a triumphant glance at young Master Huang. She climbed back onto her motorcycle and waved for Ian to get on. As he walked over, he asked, "Aren't you worried I might be dangerous?" Meng Yao laughed loudly. "Young Master Huang, are you afraid he's a threat?" Young Master Huang chuckled. "What dangerous person could be scarier than zombies?" Ha ha. Seeing their confidence, Ian asked no further questions and mounted Meng Yao's motorcycle. The motorcade set off, carrying Ian toward their base. He rested one hand lightly on Meng Yao's waist during the ride. She stiffened slightly at the unfamiliar contact, but did not push his hand away. The convoy entered a large courtyard compound. Everyone dismounted, and the main gate was shut behind them. Meng Yao took off her helmet, her cheeks flushed. She marched over to young Master Huang, trembling with frustration. "Young Master Huang, he kept touching me the whole ride. Young Master Huang patted her shoulder to soothe her. All right, I understand. Dozens of burly men emerged all at once, each gripping a weapon. Young Master Huang gestured toward the inner courtyard and smirked coldly. Boy, after you. When Ian smiled calmly, the appearance of these armed men stirred little anxiety within him. He continued walking deeper into the courtyard. Stepping into the courtyard, when Ian found it crowded with people of all ages. Most bore wounds, and several young women were locked inside metal cages, clad in tattered garments. These women clearly had endured terrible suffering. When Ian had entered with a casual mindset, but his expression darkened instantly at the sight. He turned to stare at young Master Huang and said coldly, "How can you commit such cruel deeds without fearing karmic retribution?" Young Master Huang let out a loud laugh. Meng Yao, he claims I will face retribution? Meng Yao covered her mouth and chuckled. Young Master Huang, you wield the Reaper ability. How could misfortune befall you? When Ian's eyelid twitched. The Reaper ability? It sounded incredibly formidable. Young Master Huang sneered. Boy, do you know why I went through so much trouble to lure you here? A faint smirk tugged at Ian's lips. I suppose you believe I am an ability user and intend to kill me to seize my crystal core? Huang Ziheng froze, surprised. You have slain other ability users before? When Ian replied calmly, in a manner of speaking. After all, Shan had taken his own life, though when Ian had played a part in the events. Huang Ziheng wasted no more words. Thick blood energy emanated from his body, and a blood-red scythe materialized in his grasp. He spoke with icy malice. To die by my blade ought to be an honor for you. When Ian remained impassive, he prepared to manifest a long blade and cut down the arrogant man before him. Squeal. A harsh screech of metal cut through the air. A woman dressed entirely in white martial attire rushed over from afar. She executed a backflip, sailing over the surrounding thugs, and landed steadily right in front of Ian. When Ian got a clear look at her, a white cloth bound her hair. She wore simple linen robes, tear streaks marked her cheeks, and she held a spear angled at her side. The woman shouted sharply, Huang Ziheng, enough. Get out of my family's courtyard this instant, or I will drag you down with me even if I die. Huang Ziheng snorted. You? You ought to mourn your deceased father instead. Ha ha. Meng Yao at his side laughed and echoed him. So you killed your own father with your own hands. Instead of repenting, you dare play the hero? Su Yu's face flushed crimson, and her spear trembled slightly. She took a deep breath and warned once more. Release everyone from the cages and leave at once. Huang Ziheng looked at her as if she were an idiot and crooked his finger, beckoning her forward. Su Yu pushed off with her right foot, launching herself toward Huang Ziheng like an arrow loosed from a bow. Her spear crashed down violently. Huang Ziheng swung his blood scythe to block, and the two clashed, sending sparks flying everywhere. Su Yu clearly had formal training with spears. Compared to Huang Ziheng's wild, unrefined strikes, her technique was polished and sharp. Within a few exchanges, Huang Ziheng was sent flying backward. He clutched his stomach, gasping heavily. When Ian's mouth twitched, filled with quiet disbelief. This was the so-called Mighty Reaper ability user? He was far less impressive than expected. Huang Ziheng suddenly roared. Kill them. One of the thugs immediately slit an elderly man's carotid artery. Blood gushed out. Yet before it hit the ground, Huang Ziheng drew it all into his body. A thin layer of blood armor began forming over his frame. He continuously absorbed blood to solidify the armor further. Su Yu shouted in rage. Huang Ziheng, you monster. The pair clashed again, but this time Su Yu was clearly at a disadvantage. Her attacks could not pierce the defense of the blood armor. As they fought, when Ian quietly instructed Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi, detach from my body and shift into humanoid form to eliminate those thugs. Xiaoxi responded, as you command, master. If this had happened earlier, when Ian would never have removed his combat suit to risk a direct confrontation against an ability user. Yet after inheriting the memories of perfected swordsmanship, his craving for thrilling combat had grown stronger. During the fight, Su Yu left an opening. Huang Ziheng seized the chance and kicked her hard in the abdomen. She flew toward Ian like a curled shrimp, and he caught her securely with one hand. When Ian said calmly, go rescue the captives. Leave this man to me. Su Yu stared at him in surprise. Are you also an ability user? When Ian shook his head, I am not, yet I am confident I can kill him. Su Yu tried to dissuade him, but when Ian already gripped his long blade and charged forward, Huang Ziheng watched Ian rushing toward him and grinned, shouting, keep killing. However, no action came from the rear. He glanced back in confusion and saw a humanoid robot wielding twin blade arms, with turrets mounted on its shoulders firing streaks of crimson light. His thugs were being slaughtered relentlessly. Huang Ziheng's face paled, and he attempted to rush over to stop the robot. But when Ian was already upon him, when Ian unleashed a spinning slash aimed at his head, Huang Ziheng hastily raised his scythe to block. Clang! Huang Ziheng's features twisted with ferocity. Blood energy surged through his body as he roared. "Boy, you will die today." He lifted his scythe and charged forward, swinging it wildly. Clang, clang, clang. Without his combat suit enhancing his strength, when Ian could not match his raw power, he relied on subtle leverage to deflect each blow. After dodging another sweep of the scythe, he delivered a diagonal slash toward Huang Ziheng's neck. Crack! A fissure split the blood armor around his neck, though it mended itself almost instantly. Huang Ziheng let out a cold laugh. "You are just as useless as that woman. You cannot even break through my defenses." He swung the scythe diagonally, when Ian twisted aside to evade, then brought his blade crashing onto the moving scythe. Huang Ziheng's palm stung sharply. The scythe slipped from his grasp, and when Ian followed with a heavy overhead strike. Crack! The blood armor covering Huang Ziheng's chest shattered completely. A long gash stretched from his chest down to his abdomen. Clutching his wound, agony clouded his senses. Thin strands of blood sprouted from the injury, stitching the cut closed. When Ian intended to finish him off while he was wounded and charged forward again, Huang Ziheng lifted his head, his eyes burning scarlet. The blood armor dissolved into blood mist, which coalesced into countless blood spikes suspended in the air. When Ian skidded to an abrupt halt, a powerful sense of danger washed over him. He silently berated himself for seeking unnecessary thrills. At this critical moment, the swordsmanship memory archive in his mind shuddered, flooding his consciousness with new insights. His mastery of perfected swordsmanship rose to 50%. As the blood spikes shot toward him, his body reacted faster than his thoughts. He brought his blade down and pushed off with his rear foot, stretching his body into a horizontal split. His blade cleaved the incoming spikes apart. Hundreds of blood spikes streaked past him, striking the ordinary survivors behind. Nearly all of them perished instantly. Suyu reacted swiftly and darted out of the attack radius the moment the spikes launched. At that instant, only 4 people remained alive within the courtyard: Meng Yao, Suyu, Wen Ian, and Huang Ziheng. Huang Ziheng raised his hand. Rivers of blood flowed endlessly from the corpses, converging upon his body. When Ian reactivated his combat suit, which enveloped him completely, he fixed Huang Ziheng with an icy gaze. The farce ends now. When Ian charged Huang Ziheng, who was still absorbing blood, a thick layer of blood armor wrapped his frame, and an even larger scythe materialized in his hands. Clang! Their weapons collided, showering sparks. The ringing of metal echoed continuously, bolstered by perfected swordsmanship. When Ian struck the blood armor repeatedly, cracks spread across the surface, only to repair themselves rapidly. Relying on this defensive shell, Huang Ziheng barely managed to hold off when Ian's assaults. Over successive clashes, when Ian intentionally struck the same spot on the scythe, after 8 collisions, the weapon finally fractured under the strain. Seizing the opening, when Ian twisted his waist and unleashed horizontal sweeps, landing repeated blows on the blood armor covering Huang Ziheng's chest. Crack! The blood armor shattered entirely. When Ian drove his long blade straight into Huang Ziheng's chest. Squelch! He twisted the blade, tearing the heart to shreds. When Ian pulled the blade free, to ensure Huang Ziheng would not survive, he plunged his palm into the wound, ripped out the mangled heart, and crushed it forcefully. He retrieved the ability crystal core left behind. Thud! The body crashed heavily to the ground. When Ian stowed the crystal core and turned toward Meng Yao, who crept toward the gate, hoping to slip away unnoticed. Meng Yao trembled violently and dropped to her knees. When Ian walked slowly toward her, Meng Yao stammered in fear. "Sir, I beg you, spare my life." When Ian advanced steadily with his blade, unmoved by her pleas, Meng Yao suddenly thought of something and spoke quickly. "Sir, I am an ability user. I can sense my surroundings through sound. Spare me, and I will offer all I can to assist you." She laid out all her value in one breath. When Ian raised an eyebrow, an unexpected gain, he checked his energy points. Current energy points, 21058. Huang Ziheng's body had granted him 120 energy points. He stared at the trembling Meng Yao and said coldly, "Have you killed other ability users? How did you make use of their crystal cores?" Meng Yao clung to this slim chance of survival and rushed to answer. "Yes, we have. If I tell you everything, you must let me go. We killed one ability user." According to what he said, his ability could analyze information from any sound, and he possessed extraordinary hearing. After Huang Ziheng killed him, he gave me the crystal core to consume. That is how I gained sound-based perception. You can think of it as, when Ian interjected, a radar. Meng Yao nodded repeatedly. Exactly, a radar. I have told you everything. Can I leave now? Ignoring her request, when Ian pressed on. What about crystal cores harvested from zombies? How did you use those? Meng Yao hesitated. Huang Ziheng forced people to eat zombie crystal cores. Anyone who consumed them mutated into monsters, and he killed them afterward. After that, we slowly absorbed energy from crystal cores ourselves, yet the power within them is chaotic, so absorption proceeds slowly. I have shared everything I know. Will you let me depart? When Ian nodded with satisfaction and waved a hand. You may go. He finally understood why Huang Ziheng rode a motorcycle making loud noise. It was to supply sound for Meng Yao's ability. Meng Yao scrambled toward the gate and reached for the lock. When Ian said quietly, Xiaoxi, the combat suit detached from his body, raised an arm, and fired an energy beam straight at Meng Yao. Her heart was pierced. She turned to look at When Ian, utterly stunned. When Ian feigned an awkward expression. Oh no, my robot misfired. The combat suit extracted Meng Yao's crystal core before reattaching itself to Wen Ian. He turned to Su Yu, the only other survivor. Miss Su, will you come with me? Su Yu shook her head. I cannot. I must stay to hold a vigil for my father. With that, she turned and left. Wen Ian did not press her. He activated the thrusters on his suit and took flight into the sky. He planned to head back to the villa when he spotted a large gathering of zombies in the distance, accompanied by considerable commotion. Curious, he flew closer and saw 3 Titan zombies locked in battle with an ability user outside a hotel entrance. When Ian hovered above the hotel and watched, the female ability user wore sharp, professional attire, a black suit paired with black straight-leg trousers, clearly a former office elite. A gorgeously clad spirit floated above her, wielding a longsword and fighting the 3 Titan zombies. Meanwhile, the woman herself fended off attacks from Tier 2 zombies. She was visibly strained, forced to divide her focus protecting the civilians behind her. When Ian shook his head, she could likely escape alone, but if she insisted on shielding the others, few, if any, would survive. Acting selflessly in the apocalypse carried heavy risks, yet he could not condemn her choice. He resolved to lend a hand, earning extra energy points. Earning goodwill in the process, he leaped down from the tall building, manifesting his long blade, and slashed toward the head of one Titan zombie. The strike cleaved the creature in two, and he landed firmly. He sprinted toward the second Titan zombie, slashing through its calf. As the monster toppled backward, he jumped onto its body, stride to its head, and severed it with one blow. He pushed off hard and leaped toward the final Titan zombie. Blue plasma streams erupted from the thrusters on his back. He twisted sideways to dodge the incoming fist of the Titan zombie. Planting one foot on the monster's torso, he pushed upward and struck the last Titan zombie dead, landing steadily on the ground. His movements flowed seamlessly. Compared to his clumsy struggles in the early days of the apocalypse, he was a far different man now. He prepared to slay more Tier 2 zombies, only to watch them flee rapidly, as if they had seen a deadly plague. When Ian's mouth twitched, could zombies feel fear now? He extracted the crystal cores from the Titan zombies and turned toward the group of survivors. All of them were women dressed in business attire, presumably office workers. The spirits summoned by the female ability user had vanished. They stared at him in astonishment. He asked casually, "What brought you here?" The female ability user spoke first. "We were attending a work dinner when the apocalypse broke out. We planned to wait for official rescue teams, yet instead of aid, we were besieged by zombies." After explaining, she extended her hand to introduce herself. "My name is Bai Ling. May I know your name, sir?" When Ian shook her hand briefly with his gloved palm before pulling away. When Ian, "Miss Bai, what is your ability?" Bai Ling smiled. "You saved our lives, so I will be honest with you. My ability summons a spirit form. It can fight separately from my body or possess me to boost my combat power." When Ian nodded, growing more favorably disposed toward her candor. "Where do you intend to go next, Miss Bai?" Bai Ling thought for a moment. "We will find somewhere safe to rest, then search for supplies once daylight arrives." When Ian offered a suggestion, "I know a location that is relatively secure for now. Would you like to come?" Bai Ling hesitated briefly before nodding. "We would be grateful. If you ever require assistance in the future, do not hesitate to ask." A thought crossed when Ian's mind. "By the way, did you drive here?" Bai Ling shook her head. "I was transported by the company vehicle, which left long ago." When Ian sighed, "Very well. We will have to travel on foot." They encountered no zombies along the way. When Ian chatted casually with Bai Ling as they walked. "Bai Ling, What was your occupation before the apocalypse? Were you a secretary? A young woman behind Bai Ling let out a laugh. Not at all. I am the secretary. She is the company president. When Ian scratched his head awkwardly. Haha, my apologies. I never met a company president before the apocalypse. Bai Ling responded with a polite, awkward smile. As they passed a residential apartment building, when Ian suddenly halted and listened intently, he faintly heard the cry of an infant. Bai Ling was about to speak when Ian held a finger to his lips for silence. He whispered, "Can anyone hear a baby crying?" The group exchanged confused glances and shook their heads. Bai Ling activated her possession state. Her pupils turned golden, glowing faintly. She tilted her ears and quickly pinpointed the source of the sound. She pointed toward the 5th floor. The sound comes from up there. Ian nodded and entered the stairwell heading for the 5th floor, with the others following close behind. Upon reaching the 5th floor, the infant's cries grew clearer. He stopped outside apartment 502. Tiny tendrils extended from his combat suit and unlocked the door. The entrance swung open, and a Tier 1 zombie lunged straight at them. When Ian struck it down with a single casual slash, the infant's cries originated from the bedroom. He walked to the bedroom door and once more used the combat suit to undo the lock. When Ian pushed the door open, a young woman sat beside the crib, her gaze fixed motionlessly on her child. When Ian stepped forward to check, the woman had long since lost her life. Her skin was pale, and her eyes remained locked on the baby in the crib. He sighed and looked toward the infant. The baby's cries had weakened considerably. An empty milk bottle sat beside the crib. A sheet of paper rested beside the baby's pillow, bearing written words, "My darling, I am so sorry. Mother cannot walk this path with you any longer. If any kind soul passes by, please save my child. Please believe good people will receive good fortune." There are 2 remaining cans of milk powder on the table. Mix it with warm water to feed the baby. Baby clothes and diapers are kept inside the wardrobe. A stroller sits under the bed, along with a backpack full of infant supplies inside. Dry tear stains mark the bottom of the letter. Reading the note and taking in the scene, when Ian pieced together what had happened. When the apocalypse descended, the father turned into a zombie. The mother sealed the door immediately, yet there was no food inside the room. Her husband, transformed into a zombie, lingered outside the door. Trapped inside, she slowly starved to death. Even in her final hours, she never touched the baby's milk powder. When Ian sighed, overcome with emotion, when will this damned apocalypse finally end? Bai Ling led several women into the room. Spotting the deceased woman, they were momentarily confused about what had happened. When Ian casually handed the paper to Bai Ling, then picked up the milk bottle beside the infant. He rinsed it briefly with water, poured in warm water, and prepared to mix formula for the baby. As he opened a box of already opened milk powder, he discovered a transparent plastic bag tucked inside. He pulled it out and found a set of keys along with a note. It read, "Thank you, stranger. I am entrusting this baby to you. If you arrive too late and the baby has already passed away, please bury me and the child together. If the child is still alive, I beg you to adopt them. These keys belong to a heavy-duty truck. It is the most valuable possession our family has, and you can take it as your reward. The truck is parked at the North City Logistics Park, license plate XXXXX." When Ian sighed after reading the note, it seemed they had no choice but to take the child with them. He stowed the keys away, then handed the prepared milk bottle to the infant, who had cried itself weary. The baby began sucking on the nipple and gradually calmed down. Beside him, Bai Ling and the others finished reading the letter and started wiping away tears. One woman spoke with a sob. "Sister Bai Ling, the poor little one. Let's adopt the baby." Bai Ling fell silent. She was far from foolish, and she understood clearly what bringing an infant meant. In the end times, if the child cried uncontrollably, the noise would draw hordes of nearby zombies. On top of that, an endless list of daily supplies would be required. Goods such as milk powder and diapers were all high-consumption items. Bai Ling glanced toward Wen Ian. He met her gaze and knew exactly what worried her. He spoke firmly. "We have to take this child. It would be one thing if we never crossed paths, but now that we have found them, we cannot abandon the baby." He let out another quiet sigh and added softly, "Otherwise, the last shred of our humanity will vanish completely within this apocalypse." Bai Ling's heart was moved. "Very well. We will take responsibility for caring for the child." A faint smile appeared on Wen Ian's face, and he nodded toward the infant. "Does anyone here know how to change diapers?" Bai Ling turned to look at the women behind her. An older woman stepped forward. "I can do it." Bai Ling nodded. "Wang Fong, thank you for your trouble." Wang Fong smiled and skillfully picked up a diaper to get to work. Wen Ian reassured Bai Ling, "I will sort out supplies for the child later. You don't need to worry." Bai Ling felt slightly relieved. Even taking care of themselves was a struggle right now, and adding an infant to their burdens only made things harder. Everyone rushed to gather all usable supplies from the room before leaving. Before stepping out, when Ian locked the door. When Ian led the group safely to the courtyard house. The horrific scene littered across the yard still hadn't been cleaned up. The group recoiled at the sight of so many bodies, and several threw up. Though they had seen countless zombie corpses, deep down they still drew a line. They distinguished between zombies and living humans. When Ian explained everything that had transpired here, then continued, I will leave this place to all of you. Suyu is still keeping vigil over the body. You can comfort her. She strikes me as a kind girl. Bai Ling looked surprised. You're leaving? When Ian nodded, my teammates are waiting for me. I need to head back first. Rest assured, I will keep my promises. As he finished speaking, the thrusters mounted on the back of his combat suit ignited, and he flew straight toward the villa. When he reached the air above the villa, he saw every light turned on inside. It seemed no one had gone to rest. When Ian checked the time, 2 o'clock in the early morning, he guessed the others were waiting anxiously for his return. Instead of using the main entrance, he flew toward the balcony of his room. Curious to see how everyone was reacting, he used the suit's liquid metal properties to unlock the balcony door. Stepping lightly, he slipped inside quietly. In the main hall, the group sat clustered together. Every face was etched with worry. Zhang Hao paced back and forth restlessly. When Ishu could not sit still any longer, she slammed her palm on the table and stood up. This can't go on. My brother hasn't come back yet. Something terrible must have happened to him. I'm going out to look for him. Zhang Hao held out a hand to stop her. Ishu, calm down. I want to search for him too, but where do we even start? Should we return to where we separated? What if those zombies are still there, and we get surrounded once more? Besides, if he is still stuck at that location, the odds are not in his favor. At those words, when Ishu flared up, Zhang Hao, don't say such unlucky things. You're the one who will run into misfortune. Zhang Hao sighed helplessly. All right, I take it back. We can plan our search first. Lin Shinran frowned deeply, and the pair of cat ears on her head twitched nervously. No matter what, we cannot delay any longer. Lin Xueqing nodded in agreement. Exactly. If we have to, the whole squad will set out together. I refuse to believe a horde of zombies can stop us. Su Wanqing hesitated and spoke quietly. But, searching for people after dark is risky. We might let our anxiety cloud our judgment.